It's starting to go on now.
Okay,
I'll let you know when we're live.
okay, we are.
No, no, no. All right, we're live now.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Sherry Hofshire, and on behalf of the Arts Council, I'd like to welcome you to the Basic Support Grants Review Panel. This panel is reviewing grants for our arts organizations in Nebraska that have annual budgets of $1 million or more. Any decisions made by this panel will determine the funding for all of the applicants. Then they'll be reviewed by our Arts Council board at our meeting on June 10th. So let's first of all let you see who our wonderful panelists are. We'll go through, and if you each would please introduce yourself and where you're from and your position. Let's start with Dina.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Dina Bennett, Executive Director of the American Jazz Museum in Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay, Kellen.
I'm Kellen Boyce. I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm the Executive Director at the Sioux Falls Arts Council.
Maya.
Hey everyone, Maya Michelson. I'm Executive Director of the Indiana Arts Commission.
And Kenneth.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Kenneth Williams. I'm the Associate Director of Programs at the Texas Commission on the Arts in Austin.
Great, thank you. Then I would like to have the staff that are with us today introduce themselves. Let's start with Rachel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Morgan. I'm a program specialist here at the Nebraska Arts Council.
And Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm the Communications Manager here at the Nebraska Arts Council.
Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Darbelvis. I'm the Grants and Data Administrator here at NAC.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth. I'm the Program Coordinator at the Nebraska Arts Council.
Okay, and of course, our Executive Director, Mike Markey.
Thank you, Sherry, and thank you all for joining us today. I first of all want to thank Sherry for taking on this panel, 2 days of it. It's yeoman's duty, and I appreciate it. Want to thank the staff for helping to facilitate this, and most importantly, I want to thank this panel. Rachel has done a wonderful job pulling together a lot of wonderful people who are experts in the field, and I encourage you to take to heart the advice and suggestions that they have for you. Their information is all constructive, and they're the best. So enjoy the interaction with them today. Then I want to turn my attention to during these times, it's very important always that we reach out to our elected officials to let them know the importance of the public funding for the programs that you do. I usually talk about the state level and connecting with your state representatives. That's obviously very important. We're in the middle of the budget discussions right now, and our budget is looking intact, but it's always important to let them know the value of the funding that you get from the state. More importantly, these days, it's important to talk about the value of the federal funding here at the Nebraska level. We receive 26% of our funds from the federal government. That money's important. It trickles down to the local level. In fact, that's where it makes the most impact, is at the local level in the communities, the festivals, the foundation, the concerts, the theaters that make Nebraska a great place to live. And it's important that your federal representatives know the impact of federal funding in your community. If you're not sure what that is, you can always reach out to us. We'll be glad to let you know, or reach out to our friends at Nebraskans for the Arts. They're very willing and able to talk to you about advocacy for your state. And so I encourage you to find out as much as you can and then share that information with the people that can make a difference. Thank you, Sherry, Rachel, everybody, and I look forward to hearing some more discussion today. All right, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, Rachel, you want to tell us what our process is?
Absolutely. So I just want to remind any of the applicants listening in of the procedures. Know that the panelists have read all of the applications in advance. Each application will be discussed and then scored by each panelist according to the published criteria for this category. The scores are then averaged and the applicants will be ranked according to the score highest to lowest. A panelist or the panel's rank will determine the percentage of the applicant's request that will be awarded. It is a mathematical formula that is applied based on the amount of funds that we have available. Therefore, the higher ranking applications receive a greater percentage of your request. And also just a note to the applicants so that you understand the role of the NAC staff in the process. We do not engage in the panel discussion except to add clarification either about procedures or a certain grant, something specific when it's appropriate. Really, this conversation is for the panelists. We stay out of it. And so that's why you won't really see us engaged in the conversation. We're more than happy to answer questions and help on the front end. Once it is submitted, it is now in the hands of the panelists. So just something to kind of remember. The way the interview conversations will go today, the applicant, you have 2 minutes for introductory comments. You will see a timer that will pop up to help you keep track of your time. After that, the panel will give their review, and then the applicant has time to respond to any questions or comments that are made by the panel. And that is it.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, if no one has any other comments or anything, we will go ahead and get started. Our first applicant is Omaha Community Playhouse. And if those who are representing the Playhouse would please introduce themselves and their position, and then you have your 2 minutes introductory comments after that.
They are just coming in, Sherry, so you might have to repeat that. They may not have been hooked up to audio yet.
Okay. Let me know when they're in.
There we go.
Okay. I just said that the Omaha Community Playhouse is the first up for our applicants, and that I would like those of you who are representing the Playhouse to please introduce yourself and tell us your position. Then you have 2 minutes of introductory comments before the panelists start their review. All right, go for it.
Good morning. I'm Rebecca Noble, or Becky. I'm the Executive Director of the Omaha Community Playhouse.
I'm Maggie Schill, and
Yes,
I'm the Director of Development with the Omaha Community Playhouse.
And I just lost my electrical thing over here, and I don't have a lot of power on my, so I'm going to go plug it back in, and I'll be back in 30 seconds. So Maggie, you can
only have
I
2
can go
minutes.
I can go ahead and get
Maggie
started.
will start.
Okay.
So as you know, Omaha Community Playhouse is one of the largest and oldest arts organizations in our area, and one of the largest in the nation. We produce 10 shows a season, including our celebrating its 50th year anniversary production of A Christmas Carol. We provide a variety of programming. We try and do something for everyone, where it's large scale musicals, shows that are a little bit unknown to others. We really try and do something that all in our community would enjoy. We have education programming for all ages, and that's to cultivate creativity and personal growth. We have classes for age 5 to 105. So we really enjoy that opportunity, and we provide, we have a Vroom Mobile Sensory Theater, which provides opportunities for those who are neurodivergent or have disabilities. We have a directing fellowship for emerging directors, and the Artist Fund, which provides financial support to volunteers who are our actors and full-time crew.
Oh, you want me to go on?
Yeah.
Now that I got my electrical fixed. We are looking forward to season 101. We have a number of really exciting things happening, including our new artistic director who just arrived on Monday, Vijay Orduna, and our associate artistic director will arrive next Monday, Brandon Box-Higdon. They will have about a month and a half to work with our co-artistic directors, Alex Rodriguez and Susie Bear Collins, so that they can kind of get into the groove of things. They are each directing 3 shows in our next season, so they're going to be very involved.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll start then with primary reviewers. Kenneth.
Great, yes. Thank you guys. Nice to meet you, and thank you for the application. I think from the jump of this application, I got a really strong sense of audience development, including some attention to DEIA, accessible programming, education, and outreach, which was really great to see. I thought the upcoming season seemed like it was full of a lot of heavy hitters and really well complemented with some more subtle choices as well. The Now Lab seems like a really great initiative for local playwrights, so kudos for that program. The Directing Fellowship also seems really commendable, and it's great to see that the organization is nurturing those local talents. I thought you guys had a really outstanding website, had a load of information in it, a lot of photos and videos to provide a virtual trip to the organization for those of us who aren't familiar or able to get there. So I really appreciated that. And that information really aligned with the information in the application narrative. So that was great. I really enjoyed the production photos. Those really showed the productions to be technically polished, which I thought was nice. I also really appreciated the attention to say that metrics of success are not always based on ticket sales or full houses. That being said, I would be appreciated to know a little bit more of a numerical assessment of those audience numbers, just for some general data. And there were a couple of points in the application that I thought could use just a little bit of proofreading, but that's just a nitpicky thing there. The industry leader interviews seems like a really great way to see what your peers are doing and to help implement some of those things for yourself. So that was nice to see. I think there was a mention of that some of the parts of the strategic plan were put on pause. So I would be curious to know a little bit more about what those things were, or rather what things are continuing to move forward. It was really nice to have so many bios provided for leadership, so that was great. You seem like you're in very capable hands there. I also really appreciated the healthy portion of the budget that is being allocated towards marketing costs, and appreciated the breakdown of those items as well. So that was nice to see, especially as you guys continue to grow your audience and cultivate that tourism. You have healthy and varied sources of income, which is nice. The partnerships seem good, but I did notice it seems like the community wants more collaborations with smaller theater organizations in the area. So I'd be curious to know about any programming or partnerships you guys have with those smaller organizations. There were some audience numbers later in the application narrative, so I was able to get a little bit more of that quantitative data there. Just want to say thank you guys for paying your creatives. I think that is really important to the community and the artists, especially for an organization of your size. And I thought the letters of support were okay, but I would encourage you guys in the future to maybe get more formal letters rather than a chain of emails or a YouTube video. But I thought it was a well-rounded application.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Thank you.
Sherry,
Kellen?
Okay, thanks.
Kellen?
Yes. Sorry, I was waiting. I didn't know if there was a changeover or anything.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
yes.
I muted myself.
Okay. Thanks for all of that great review of the application, Kenneth. I don't have a lot more to say, but I really did. There's a couple key points that I was really interested in. I mean, generally you're doing everything that you would expect a community theater group to do. You know, you're providing classes and education opportunities. There's a great lineup of a variety of different programming that community members can get involved in, the fact that, the theater apprenticeship program, different things like that. But the playwright programming, the now programming was really interesting to me. Is just developing that as another aspect. We think of theater arts and we just kind of sometimes get stuck on the performance aspect, but somebody needs to direct that. Somebody needs to put all this together. All those things and writing those, and then how you get true like representation from your community of like what that community is in the now is like having these playwrights like right today, So I'm super excited about that. That was really encouraging to see. Because I think we can get off on tangents, but that one's really cool. The other thing that I really enjoyed, amount of classes seemed really appropriate fit. I was curious too, like Kenneth, of like just different ways that you can engage with different theater groups. I'm not familiar with the makeup of it, but knowing from what I know from my small community, there's like the main theater, the main community theater, and then there's all these little groups. So I would just be curious where they live. And is that part of your people? Are they all the same? Because sometimes it's the same people. So those were the things that kind of stuck up. Kind of thanks for mentioning that because I almost didn't put that in my notes. And then the sensory theater was, I think, really key point too for just that community engagement and like how we're reaching those audiences that traditionally don't see the theater as like a place for them because of the things that happen in the theater that are part of the magic, but can also be really scary. And so like, I think like some of those things, those little soft touches that you brought to it was, for me, made a lot of sense. And it's like, we overlook those a lot. But no, it was a really great application. You guys are, I wish I knew more about the Omaha landscape so I could like really understand it more, but from the application, it painted a great picture. I did have some more questions, but and then with the strategic planning, but it was all around, it was wonderful.
Okay, thank you. Dina?
Hello there. My fellow commenters have covered a lot, but I understand that you are very community centric, and I did enjoy reading that your community members are part of the play reading process. And I wanted to know a little bit more though about how that brings value to the community. I liked reading about your traveling theater so that you can reach audiences with autism and development disabilities and sensory sensitivities. I think that's wonderful that you can go to them. Let's see, I did see about the strategic plan that's on hold. And you're trying to get your new artistic team in place. So you seem to have programs and services that support your organization with the classes and workshops and camps, in school, after school programming. You have an apprentice program. That was pretty cool for high school and early college students as well. So it was a strong application, and I appreciated reading more about it. As someone who doesn't know a whole lot about the theater, it was very enlightening. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maya?
Great, thanks. I'll just touch on a couple of things. Appreciated. I'll double click on what Dina said about the play reading committee. I think that's great. What I wanted to see a bit more of, and it's probably there, it just didn't show up in the application. Exactly other ways that you get community input into what you do, how you take into account community voices in program planning, not just in season selection, but in the other work that you do. It's no doubt there. I just didn't see it in the application. And something that I want to touch on again for such a high functioning organization, this was missing for me, and I think again it's just an omission of something that's probably already there. In the evaluation rubric, NAC asks for applicants to tell us how your programs and services have community value, or how the community values it. No doubt you're collecting that in your evaluation, but you're not telling us that in the application. So tell us specifically how the community views the value of the programs and services you provide. I know you know that, just tell us that. That was just a missing piece for me. Around planning and evaluation, good mix of income and so forth. I was a little taken aback again for an organization that's got a facility with a lot of things going on, no doubt. A little bit of a not laissez-faire, but I didn't see quite the approach to sort of maintenance or capital improvement budgeting or a plan there that I would have expected to see for an organization like this. I felt like that was a missing piece for me related knowing theaters have things that break and parking lots and roofs and all that sort of good stuff. I would have expected to see a bit more there. And then lastly, around the education advocacy piece, you're doing good work there, but I challenge you. You are a major force in your state as an organization. You are a leader in not just in Nebraska, but in the field of community theater. You're a model for community theaters around the country. And I think you can model a bit more around advocacy and education around the importance of public investment in the arts. Your 100th anniversary gives you a great opportunity to do that. But I would just really challenge you to do more, go deeper and harder related to advocacy and education, because this moment needs it. And you guys are equipped to do it. You got people who can talk and sing and dance and do the things, right? You're comfortable in front of an audience. So the state is your audience right now related to the importance of the impact of funding for the arts. So that's my last bit. Again, enjoyed reading it. Double click on the high quality website and the artistic materials. It was a joy to look at all the images. So thanks.
Okay, Becky and Maggie, it's yours now to respond to any of the questions or comments that were made, or if you have questions.
Oh, Becky, you're muted.
Now I'm not. I'll start. One of the things that I think you're speaking to in terms of community and everything, we have really addressed a great deal over the past year or so, and that is collaboration with other organizations. We have entered into a lot of talks and a plan with the Omaha Conservatory of Music and the Omaha Academy of Ballet, who are our neighbors, to combine our organizations as we can, which may mean sharing resources, even sharing some staff, finding ways to collaborate on projects and so on. We're going to collaborate with them on a summer camp for kids, so that kids will have not only the opportunity to take some classes at the Playhouse, but then they'll be able to go over to the conservatory and do some voice classes or instrumental classes or so on, and then go over to the ballet for dance. We are also kind of in a stage of really revamping our Now Lab a little bit so that we are collaborative in that. There are about 3 different theaters in town who have a long history of supporting new works, new plays, and so on. The Great Plains Theater Commons, the Shelter Belt Theater, the Circle Theater, they have long-standing playwright programs. And so rather than duplicate or compete, we are working to collaborate and find ways that we can maybe connect with them in terms of what they're doing and how can we be part of that program. And that's another way for us to really become more involved in the community and work together. Because as someone said, we are in tough times. And we're very concerned about what might happen in the next year or two. And I think collaboration is probably one of the strongest things that we can do to maintain the health of all of our organizations.
And I can touch on the strategic plan. So the strategic plan is in place until 2027. It's not on pause per se, but a lot of the individuals that created it are no longer with the organization. So we have kind of tried to update that as best we can and move forward with those plans. But we're really, as we have Becky in place and VJ coming in as our new artistic director, we're really wanting to make sure that these individuals are at the table and agree with what we're kind of doing going forward. So we will keep that in place until 2027, but right now is the time that while we have this leadership changeover, that we want to kind of start making sure that everything we're doing is in line with that. And we're already having conversations about the future and what is the future of community theater and what is the future of our place in Omaha. So we're already starting those conversations early on. So that's kind of the update with the strategic plan. The other thing I wanted to touch on is our audience numbers. We serve about 60,000 people every year via subscriptions, individual single ticket buyers, and our ticket sales are about 1.7 million each year. That's kind of our projection. We serve about 10,000 with the other programs that we do, education, Vroom, directing fellows, and such. And so those are kind of the numbers that we potentially omitted that you were looking for. And then capital improvement, it's not reflected in the budget and the way that you would probably have looked at it. So we just finished our big HVAC and roof project, which then led itself into a big parking lot project. So that kind of was our big capitals that we've tackled this year. And then going forward, we have a capital reserve and a very long list of items that are needed. And we reevaluate that every so often to, see, what is the biggest priority? Is it, is it our seats that need to be updated or is it our microphones? Just kind of reevaluating that because our building is aged. And we recognize that. And so we're just always trying to maintain good quality theater. So, yeah. Becky, was there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
Sure. I'll talk a little bit about, again, with that sense of community. We were very fortunate this year to have some shows that really brought a lot of community members in. For our production of Waitress, we partnered with the Women's Center, which helps women who are fleeing maybe domestic violence or that sort of thing. And the outpouring from the community in terms of items that they brought in was truckloads of things, for whether it's shampoo and that sort of thing, or all of the kinds of things that women need if they're trying to start a new life for themselves. And it was very successful. We also have partnered with Rise for a production which helps formerly incarcerated people. When we did our production of Clyde's, we included that. So we're always looking for ways to do that. We also have part of our play reading is a commitment to having at least 3 productions a year that are either BIPOC or female driven. That's by authorship or music or however it may be. So we have continued that in our production of American Mariachi, which just opened on our stage last weekend, included a community event beforehand with a food truck from South Omaha and the Radio Lobo doing a remote from the theater, and mariachi singers and performers and dancers. And it was an incredible community event. We continue to look for those kinds of things. The playwright came into town to be involved with it as well. And that it's been a very exciting time, so that we're trying to make sure that we are always reflecting what our entire world is, that our theater looks like the world and our theater looks like our community. And it's not just one group of people, but it's a variety of cultures and ethnicities that make our city so great.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Maggie and Becky. Appreciate your comments and your time. And with that, your session is now ended, and thank you. And the panelists, will you look at your scores, see if you have any adjustments, and then thumbs up when you're finished. Thanks, gals.
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Sam, Sam, if you want to go ahead and let Matt in as panelists are adjusting, that'd be great.
Okay, I just looked up, so I see Dina. Ma'am, okay, we're ready. Okay, welcome Omaha Theater Company. Would you introduce yourself and tell what your position is in the organization for the panelists? Then you have 2 minutes to do introductory comments. Matt, he looks like he's frozen.
Oh, Hello, can you all hear
Okay,
me?
Matt, did you hear what I just said?
Okay, I'm not getting any audio here. Maybe it's because I had the live stream going during the Omaha Community Playhouse one. Well, hi, my name is Matt. Hopefully I'll be able to get my Zoom working a little bit better here, but please feel free to put in the chat if it cuts out due to any connectivity issues. The Rose Theater is Nebraska's only professional theater for young people. We're really proud of the investment that we make in local artists and putting them in collaboration with nationally renowned artists to make work for young people that really attempts to speak to kids at eye level, to make sure that the artistic rigor is central to what we're doing in our productions and in our education. So we've paired local artists with national artists like Tony winner Justin Townsend, Emmy winner Adam Rowe. This upcoming season, we're going to be bringing in the resident director of Sesame Street, Alan Maraca. We're really lucky to have him collaborating with us to direct a production of a new play. So that's something that we really value a lot in our commitment to doing this. We also invest in the creation of new work. This past season, Secret Kindness Agents, based on the work of a local activist, is something that we are very proud to have shared with the community. Milo Imagines the World is also an example of a model that we frequently engage in, collaborating with other theaters to co-commission new works for the stage. So Milo was a collaboration with the Children's Theater Company in Minneapolis and the Chicago Children's Theater. And the playwright we were able to hire, Terry Guest, actually won a Joyce Foundation Award for that play, which Omaha audiences got to enjoy last month. Areas of growth for us, really include our pre-K programming right now, our year-long classes in musical theater, and our Community Connections programming. The Community Connections programming aims to promote cultural equity in the community. So that comes in a variety of dynamic forms, working solely in partnership with other organizations. The most recent example is weekly classes with the Nebraska Urban Indian Health Coalition. So we are always making that available at no cost to our community partners so that we can introduce theater to folks that might not otherwise engage with the Rose, and to make sure that our organization is always evolving through legitimate partnerships with other organizations in the community.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to stop you there because your 2-minute introductory is up.
Seeing the fingers.
Hang on. You can't hear me? Can you hear me? Can't. He obviously is not hearing, which means that he's not going to hear any of your comments either.
Did he say he joined the live stream? And yeah, that may be his problem. So maybe he needs to drop out of the live stream and join the Zoom.
Sam, are you in connection with him at all?
I'm messaging him. Oh my.
I've got
Yeah.
audio on my phone on the live stream.
Okay, hey, Matt, can you click on the arrow next to the audio and see where your speaker is selected to make sure it's coming out of the correct speaker? Maybe that's why you can't hear, or make sure your audio isn't muted. Yeah, that's right. Never mind.
I
I can hear.
think
Well, he could hear you. Can you hear me now, Matt?
I can, thank you.
Okay, good. What we're going to do then is have the panelists through their comments, and then at the end, you can respond to any of their comments, answer their questions, and mention anything else you want to. Okay? All right, we'll start with Kenneth.
All right. I thought the opening narrative to the application was really nicely written, gave a really good scope of the organization, and made me really excited to see photos or videos of the space and audiences. But unfortunately, we didn't get that in the work samples. So I would encourage you guys in the future to include a link to your website or videos to show off the work and services. If that's the theater behind you, Matt, it looks beautiful. So
It
we
is.
should have seen some of that in the application itself. But it seems like there's a really fun and exciting season ahead, which is really great to see. I think the attention to serving all young people is really admirable, especially all of the specialized classes or accommodations that you guys offer. It shows a real priority to serving those audiences. I thought the education initiatives seemed really well-rounded. You guys as an organization seem to have a really clear commitment to your audiences, and you're doing a good job with outreach and bringing students into your space. I thought the program seemed really nicely tailored to the specific age ranges. The pre-professional offering seems like a great way to invest in the local talent there, beyond the other programs and classes that you guys have. So that was great to see. Really nice commitment to inclusivity with projects like the Pride Players and the Teen Idea Coalition. So that was nice. Excuse me. I also really appreciated the inclusion of so many numbers and statistics throughout the application. As a math-minded person, that was really nice compliment to the narratives. However, I would caution you guys. I think there was some not so positive feedback in the application in one of the SurveyMonkey results. So just watch out for things like that. And if that is something you're going to include in the application, make sure that somewhere else in the application speaks to that and how you guys are looking at that feedback. Let's see, I mentioned that already. I thought from the bios of the leadership of the organization, you guys seem to be in really great administrative and artistic hands. There's a nice, healthy budget with varied income sources. It would have been nice to see the marketing costs broken down just a little bit to understand the avenues that you pursue there. But that number seemed okay. And a really extensive number of partners and collaborations underscore how beloved you guys are as an organization and to your community. So that was lovely.
Okay, thank you, Kenneth. Dina?
Hello, Matt. Thank you for the application. Looking at the criteria in our evaluation model, so it was really neat to read about your Community Connections program and how you provide free tickets for youth served in 45 community organizations. I think you have a really wonderful facility learning about the Rose Theater and Rose Studios and the difference and how it's a safe space for young people. So let's see, let me skip down here. I read about the renovating the classrooms into dance studios to accommodate new after-school programming. And maybe it's in there, maybe I just didn't get it. Is that on the Rose Theater side or the Rose Studio side? Maybe it's on the studio side since they are dance studios. So under the budget, I didn't know what on number 4, what education and Broadway meant. Under the travel category, I assume it might mean going to a Broadway play. I'm not sure. You had a lengthy list of community collaborators, the largest being the school district. Some of your proactive plan for audience development. I see that you partner with other youth serving organizations, which is smart. And you have that Teens in Theater program and the Pride Players. As far as underserved, I thought that was really strong as well. You're a healing balm for at-risk, traumatized, justice-involved young people. You serve all children, including TRIO programs. Glad to read about that, Girl Scouts. So yeah, those are my comments.
Okay. Maya?
Okay, hang on let me get this in front of me. Just a couple comments. I want to give you a shout out here. You did address the under artistic excellence section, you did address how you are responsive to the community question head on, which is great. So big double click on that. Appreciated seeing the audience survey. Would encourage you to phrase a question around significant value or how the participant values the work that you do. It is part of the evaluation criteria for NAC. So again, would encourage you to think about that for the future. Make sure that you're capturing that in the evaluation work that you do. Related, appreciate seeing the strategic plan. You did provide some measurements and numbers, but wanted to see a little bit more across the board there in your plan. I appreciated the development plan, but I wanted to see something a little more robust. You're a complex, sophisticated organization. Just wanted to see something that reflected that a bit more in the plan you had for development. Under outreach and engagement, wanted to see a bit more robust audience development plan from you guys. And then lastly, under advocacy and education, I would like to see you guys think about being more active related to education and state and local policymakers. You know, you send an email and you invite them to productions, and that you attend the lobbying day. In this moment, it's really important for organizations to step up, and you're a highly visible organization. Theaters are really great at that storytelling piece of advocacy and education. So would really encourage you as the only professional theater to really make the case in a really compelling and sophisticated way and really lean into advocacy and education going forward.
Okay, thank you. Kellen?
I don't have a lot to add. Just some of the things, the youth mental health pilot that I believe this was highlighting or had talked about. I just thought that was really, focusing on those other efforts, because we know mental health is such a big thing. We know that the arts help mental health, but there's like so many different layers. And I think like even directly working with children, like that just puts a whole nother layer into it. So I appreciated that you're looking at that, because we all need some of that. The other things, I really liked the like your evaluation and planning. You put in there that you in addition to reviews, you get artist feedback and surveys, but the student observation model and teaching evaluations, I think, is really important too, as you're like working directly with children and the teachers. Are they a good fit? Sometimes I've seen, hey, come teach a class. It's like not everybody's a teacher. So it's good that you're just touching base on that and like maybe keeping up with the standards and like what's happening. I thought that was very encouraging, especially because you're putting yourself in that position to do those things, that you're, of course, like doing it. Of course you're doing it right, but it was just like really good that you put that in there, and I appreciated that. Other than that, I just thought it was a really impressive list of the community groups that you're working with. It just seems like you have an open door, that you're just like willing to work with a lot of anything and just seeing where you can be a good fit in the community. And I think that's a really amazing thing to be able to do. So just commend you on that.
Okay, and Matt, you'll have time now to answer questions, make any responses. I would mention, though, that it was commented on about whether or not that was your theater behind, and I should say that's one of the things that Omaha did well many years ago, was when we had this beautiful old building, we actually kept it. And now it's our children's theater. Okay, Matt, it's yours.
Yeah, I don't know if it's legend or fact, but I guess it was going to be turned into a parking garage before Mrs. Blumkin saved it and set it aside for the purpose of keeping this space, this magical space, because you're seeing an image of the auditorium, but one of the most rewarding parts of our jobs is seeing the kids walk into the lobby off their buses. And generally about once a week, there's a kid that goes, "This is for me." So it's pretty special. Yeah, I love this model. It's so great having like been a reader for the NEA and MAA to be able to interact directly with the evaluators. And so thank you for the feedback and then the questions. I think the advocacy piece is such a strong and necessary suggestion for us to lean into. And I think that we have a couple of things that are in motion to help with that. We do have a state senator who recently termed out joining our board next year. And I think that that might help us get some focus in terms of the best ways to do that without, without perhaps endangering a sense of community blowback from being, overtly in the political sphere, particularly when we're talking about arts and education. I think that that risk is very low, but it is something that we've taken seriously. I was just at a conference where we were talking as a field, the TYA field, Theater for Young Audiences, about the need to broaden our coalition. There's a playwright that was commenting on recent events who also happens to be a member of the Teamsters Union. And I thought that that was pretty inspiring to sort of think about the avenues beyond the arts, the avenues beyond the nonprofit theater sector that might have a collective story to tell. And I think that the suggestion about doing that with our partners at OPS and other local school districts is a strong one. So double click is the phrase I would also use on that. I think that's very true and necessary and something we just need to lean into harder. The question about travel for the Broadway program. The Broadway program in the budget is the reference to the studios programming, so the year-long classes in musical theater disciplines. And we do send the kiddos to the two versions of the National Junior Theater Festival, Sacramento and Atlanta. And the Sacramento group actually came back with the highest award in that national festival this last year. We're really, really proud of them. I think the comment about speaking to our value in the application, I'm wondering if any of the panelists have had experiences with the Wolf Brown intrinsic impact form, and if you might recommend that as a thing that we pursue, perhaps with the assistance of some local funders to make that happen, because I think it could give some data to some of the things that we know narratively from teachers, but that we've not necessarily studied in the same rigorous way.
Yeah, I would double click on that, Matt, for sure. I think that could be really helpful. It's super helpful for obviously program planning and understanding your value. It's also can be a powerful advocacy education tool to share related to how your work changes lives or impacts lives in significant ways. So I would encourage you again to look at either that tool or some other tool that helps translate your work into value, and then that value into life-changing impact, and that impact stories into advocacy efforts. I keep talking about advocacy. I really do care about more than that, but it's all connected in the moment for sure.
Yeah.
Matt, do you have any other comments you want to make?
The question about investing in redoing our classrooms downtown is about providing dance instruction specific spaces in the downtown core, and recognizing that we merged with an organization a couple years ago, a studio that sent their students to us, and we wanted to make it more geographically accessible for them to take classes downtown versus at 120th and Center, which is considered a little more midtown in Omaha terms.
Anything else? Okay, then I thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and that will end our session with you now. And panelists, if you'll check your scores and give me the thumbs up when you're done. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much.
Sam, both Joan and Sabrina will be coming in for Omaha Performing Arts.
Okay, okay. I see Kaylin's thumb up. Kenneth.
I didn't get to add a score in one of the categories, so I was wondering if I would be able to do that now.
Absolutely, you can do it at any time.
Okay, I keep trying to save it and it won't save.
Ooh, that might be a Jennifer question then.
Yeah, I sent a note to Jennifer. Yeah.
Perfect.
So, okay, thank you.
Okay, at least we know she's on it and she can get it in there.
Okay.
Maya, are you ready or I'm not trying to force you. Okay. All right, then we are ready to move on to Omaha Performing Arts. Would like to welcome the representatives from Omaha Performing Arts, and if you would just identify yourself and your position for the panelist.
Sure. Thank you, Sherry. I'm Joan Squires. I'm president of Omaha Performing Arts. And with me,
Good morning, Sabrina Weiss, Vice President of Development for Omaha Performing Arts.
Okay, the process is that you have 2 minutes of an introductory, whatever you want to say, which is timed, and then the panelists will give their reviews and you'll have time at the end then to answer any of their questions or make any other responses. So your 2 minutes start.
great. Thank you, Sherry. And thanks to the panel for the work you've been putting into this. We appreciate it. Those of you who don't know us, Omaha Performing Arts is Nebraska's largest arts institution. Our mission is threefold. We bring in the best of the touring artists and ensembles from across the country and actually the world to our community and state. We are committed to education and engagement activities for the arts, and we have a stewardship of 3, soon to be 4 amazing venues: the Holland Performing Arts Center, Steelhouse Omaha, which opened last year, the historic Orpheum Theater, and opening in March of 2026, the Tenaska Center for Arts Engagement. Our annual economic impact is over $61 million. We reach over 600,000 people a year through the 3 venues that we have currently. And what's been wonderful is with the variety of types of venues that we now serve, we have reached all demographics, audiences, and ages, and especially some of the younger demographics through Steelhouse. The Tenaska Center, which opens in March, is because our education engagement activities have outgrown our current facilities. So we're very excited to be adding classroom and rehearsal spaces and places for the community generally to be able to use it and for us to offer additional classes with that. I do want to highlight our signature program, Nebraska Theater Academy, which reaches now students in all 93 counties across the entire state, connects them to Broadway performers and opportunities for adjudication, workshops, classes in singing, dancing, acting, and more. And it's been really gratifying to be able to bring these programs to students across all of Nebraska. And finally, next season, we celebrate our 20th anniversary, and time is up. So I'll stop there.
Okay, great. You'll have time to say whatever else you want at the end. Okay, let's go then with Dina. We start with you.
So good morning. Looking at the application, you are really doing a lot for the community, which is wonderful. Not only do you have your arts education programs for students of all ages, but you also have the free outdoor neighborhood concerts. I noticed that you said your programs interact and activate the community, so I wanted to know more about that and what value these things are bringing to the community. Although you are serving lots of different pockets of the community from preschool to adult, it seems to be something for everyone. Evaluation, I did enjoy reading about your evaluation techniques. I thought it was very comprehensive. The feedback that you get, the marketing, PR, the tracking that you do. And I was really happy to read that you use the Nebraska and Iowa Fine Arts Standards and National Achievement Standards to evaluate and align your program objectives. So I thought your revenue streams were quite strong as well. Community collaborators was really good as well. Inside and outside of Nebraska, was also glad to see that you also partner with churches. I think sometimes we leave out partnering with churches or community groups that come out of the churches. You're attracting new and underserved audiences. Was really interesting to read about the Arts Access Program that serves low income and other underserved populations, and your hip hop advisory council. That's pretty awesome. That's such a popular genre of music and attracts a lot of people. Military families, can't forget about them. And then I thought that your advocacy, Mia might talk about advocacy, but I thought you're doing a lot in the way of advocacy with policymakers and elected officials as well. So keep up the good work.
Okay. And is there any connection between jazz and hip hop now, Tina?
Oh yeah, there's a relationship for sure.
You're a
Yeah.
little prejudiced. Okay, then let's move on to Kenneth.
Thank you. Yeah, what an impressive organization. I was really excited reading this entire application. I thought the narratives were written really well. So shout out to whoever wrote this grant. That was nice. From the programming schedule, it seems like there is always something going on at OPA, and that is providing those audiences and patrons with a multitude of offerings to garner and keep their attention, which was really nice to see. I think you guys have a commendable educational programming that really looks to activate and engage young people, which is very exciting. A lot of the programming feels really fresh and relative. I thought the new industries and immersive experiences initiatives especially seem really exciting and something like that I would want to come experience as an audience member. I really did struggle though with the work samples that were provided. I think in the future it would be really beneficial to provide some direct videos. The work samples that we had were a lot of news articles, which had a lot of pop-ups and commercials, and sometimes even a paywall, so I couldn't even look at them. So just something for you guys to consider in the future. I think an organization of that size could pretty easily produce their own video or have those things hosted on your website. I was also surprised by the very modest sized board for an organization of this size. So I'm curious if that's a typical number you guys sit at, or if it's something that you're working to cultivate in the future. But in terms of leadership, I think you guys have outstanding, capable leaders in charge of the organization. You've been incredibly successful in building and expanding the organization. So kudos to that. And I also really appreciated that from the staff bios, it seems that the staff has both long tenures and some staff that are newer to the organization. So I think that's a really great mix. In terms of the budget, I thought that could have been broken down just a little bit more. I think some of the line items were condensed in those expenses. But healthy budget, and I think you guys are doing a great job of serving your community and engaging partners. I also really appreciated that you were able to get a letter of support from a different state government partner that wasn't NAC, so that was really nice to see.
All right, thank you. Maya?
Thanks. So double click on everything that's been said so far. Really strong application, really robust organization with a lot of great programming. Looking at the rubric, under artistic excellence, it would appear that your new initiatives such as Arts and Health, New Venue, are in direct response to community needs or something the community's asked for. But it's not specifically spelled out. So want to understand how community needs and or community members are engaged in new program development. Just some more specificity around that would have been helpful for me. Also under artistic excellence, I'm gonna, this is probably not elite, but I'm gonna guess the artists and programs have significant value to your community. But you don't say that specifically, and that is part of the evaluation rubric under artistic qualities. So make sure that you speak to that next time, that either, I'm guessing you're assessing that through your evaluation process, but tell us, 20% of our audience says it was the most amazing experience they ever had, or, 75% of our audience says it's changed their life, whatever it might be. Make sure you tell us that, because it's something that we as reviewers are looking for. Then under planning and evaluation, thorough evaluation plan. Really appreciated reading that. Wanted to read a bit more about how all that great evaluation work informs program development and iteration. Just close that loop for me. I know you're doing program development. I know you're doing evaluation. Just fill in that missing piece for me to talk about the process. Give me a bit of an insight into the process there. Under outreach and engagement, under audience engagement, big kudos on the focus to younger audiences and the strategic use of advisory committees. They're such a great tool and not enough organizations leverage them. So big shout out to you for doing that. Dina knows me well. My hobby horse for this grant review has been around advocacy and education. You guys do great work in that. So I was so delighted to see a solid plan as well as some great activities. The only thing I might encourage you to tweak a bit is, again, you're in the performance business. You do public show, you're doing public facing performances and things like that. Think about how you could highlight legislators in some significant way at a show or at some sort of public event where they're getting an actual shout out from the audience and participants and so forth. You may do that already, but dragging them up on the stage or out in front of a microphone at an opening or something like that can be really powerful. So otherwise, really strong and great to see you leading the field in that area. So that's all I've got.
Okay, Kellen.
Thanks. I echo a lot of the same comments that the fellow reviewers have expressed. One of the things that stuck out was just the multi-year residency ballet workshops, just like those kind of ongoing developing relationships that people can get excited about future, like there's not just a one and done. It's like these things are coming back. So people, if they're not ready to go, can go later. I like that just anticipation build up. And then you said something about exploring video games and animation industries. Just like looking at that as like incorporating projection mapping and different things like that. Those industries are like budding and like, what does that look like? And to bring it into a performing arts space and make it part of like your programming, I think was really brilliant, is that you're just looking at the futures of what's big and what's happening. And projection mapping is like, I don't know if that was part of this. You didn't say it specifically, but like, that's where my brain went. And then just like the 3 venues, we just would have liked to see more. I'm not from Omaha. I'm not really familiar with the organization. I'm sure in Omaha, everybody is, but I couldn't quite paint a picture where everything was based on the work samples. Just would have liked to understand that a little bit more. 3-year planning looked great. The surveys, annual feedback meetings, I was a little confused on that, on how those worked with 3 operations, 3 separate venues, and how you collect those annual feedback meetings, which I think are really important, but also like I was a little confused on how that worked. And now you're adding a 4th venue. So even just how you're going to separate those, because maybe they serve different demographics. I just was a little confused on how you were going to sort through all that. Obviously, that's something you guys deal with. So I was just a little confused on that, and maybe you've got it figured out. And just really commend you on all the programming, the free concerts in the park. All of that stuff is really great access to the community members. So amazing work.
Okay. All right. You've got 10 minutes, Joan and Sabrina, whatever you want to address.
Right. I thank you for the panelists, and we appreciate the feedback on that. It'd be opportunity to address a couple of things that you brought up. Let me start with board composition, because it's interesting you picked up on that. I call them small but mighty. Our bylaws call for up to 12, and that's it. And it has been that way since our inception. Actually, we started at 5. We're now all the way up to 11 today. We just added a new member. We do that purposefully because we want the top leadership, and they are very active. They are generous, they are strategic, they're community leaders. We engage other community members in other ways besides board membership. So we've got our presenters, we have a young professionals council, we have lots of groups of ways, plus our advisory groups that aren't necessarily board members. But the board leadership, we wanted to keep it in a group that really are engaged and they're not phoning it in, essentially. So that's been purposeful. And so far it's worked very, very well. Sabrina, do you want to address some of the things that we heard a little bit too?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you again for some of the questions and feedback. One of the things I wanted to respond to was the question around activating the community. I think there's a variety of things we obviously do in our venues, but we also get out in the community. And one of the ways we do that is through Jazz on the Green, and that's at Midtown Crossing, which used to be sort of, mid Omaha. But we work in that community. We reach about 50 to 60,000 through those 6 concerts. We work with music, do a concert at Music at Miller Park. We do 3 of those in North Omaha, which is predominantly a Black community. And then we also work with Global Canopy South and do a program called Global Sounds in South Omaha, which is predominantly Hispanic community. So in addition to bringing people in our venues, we also try to get out more in the community. That's one question I wanted to respond to. Another one I made a note of was, our artistic excellence and how we learn from our communities, sort of what they want. We have every other Monday, we have a meeting called our Patron Experience Committee, and it brings together a variety of people from different departments within our organization to talk about the shows over the past weekend, where the surveys we've collected, any responses we've had on our websites, and really it's where we share all the data that we've collected over the course of the events for the last week, and then how that informs, our decisions moving forward. So part of it is how do we continue to improve the patron experience, but also what are our patrons saying, and are we fulfilling their needs and what they're looking for?
And as we program, let me add to Sabrina, then as we also look at our programming, everything we present now, particularly with jazz and dance and some of those art forms, are going to have a community connection. We don't just want to bring it in and hope people will show up. We think it's important, if we're bringing these artists, that it's purposeful and those programs are developed before the artists come to our community, so that we have those kind of connections even before they show up. And then we also use, as you all noticed in our application, our Hip Hop Council, our Voices Amplified Committee. So we also use community members to help inform the programming that they are seeking and that would be meaningful. So we don't program in a vacuum. We make sure that we have lots of conversations and data behind it. What a couple other things. And then I think somebody referenced our health programs. We're just starting that work right now. We've been in conversations with the University of Nebraska Medical Center, some of the local agencies that provide those services, from mental health to others. So those programs are just beginning. It's a real move right now in performing arts. And some of our colleagues, I think, are a little bit ahead of us, but we're looking at, as the Tanaska Center opens, developing those programs so we have some spaces to host those. Other questions we might answer for everybody?
Sabrina, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Only last thing I was going to add is the question around highlighting some of the public officials and the legislators, and totally agree on that. We have done that in the past. We traditionally invite some of the Nebraska Arts Council staff and board, and then with our Douglas County commissioners locally, but doing more of that. In more recent years, we haven't done as much. So I definitely agree that we can do more of that.
Well, and currently with everything happening right now, we've been talking to our board members who have some of the cell phone numbers of some of our federal delegation to start to make some phone calls behind the scenes, and then to these statements. I think it's important for us as the largest institution to talk about the impact NEA and others have on the smaller organizations and across the state, so that as in our leadership role, it's not about us, it's about what it does for the breadth of it, because when they lose their funding, they don't have any other recourse. So those messages are what we are focused on, not necessarily just what it does for us specifically. So we're doing all that. But what's nice is we have relationships that we have continued to cultivate, so it's not a cold call now when we need them, which has been great. Last piece I missed a little bit in the health and wellness too, I should reference, is some of the work we're doing with veterans, because we've got a number of programs that we're working with vets, and some of those activities, so that we're going to feature, there's guitar classes and some other ones that really I think are exciting when the Tanaska Center opens. So lots more to come.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. So Sabrina and Joan, that will be the end of your session. And panelists, look at your scores and make any adjustments. Thank you, gals, for your time. Bye-bye. I do want to mention to the panelists, and it's a side that has nothing to do with scoring, but I mentioned with the Rose Theater, you saw the beautiful inside of that it was one of the buildings that Omaha saved when they knocked down a bunch of other stuff they shouldn't have knocked down. Well, they saved one other theater building that is part of, that has become part of Omaha Performing Arts. So we have two old theaters that are both just beautiful venues. So if you ever come to Omaha, got to go to the Orpheum. It's another gorgeous place.
I think we are coming to Omaha. I think NASA isn't NASA coming?
yeah,
NASA's coming. Yeah, so we're showing up, Sherry, and we're gonna expect to see all the cool things in September, I think, or October sometime.
Okay, I hope Mike is still. I'll make sure we get the word.
Well, Rachel will keep him on track. I would imagine she'll help us. Yeah.
Okay, are you all finished with your scoring? Okay, great. Then we have. Oh, I can't believe it. We're actually 1 minute behind when we got really behind. 1 minute. And so we have 6 minutes for our break. We're back at 10:20. So go refill your coffee cups.
Elizabeth, are you back?
Yep, I'm here.
Wonderful. Okay, Sam, I think we can let in our next applicant.
Who's the next one, Rachel? Sorry.
It
Symphony
is Omaha Symphony Association.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Dina, did we get your scoring issue fixed?
We did. Thank you, Jennifer. Yep,
Perfect.
appreciate it.
All right.
You gotta
Sherry?
love when the computer decides it's gonna do what it's gonna do.
Especially on panel days when it's like, ooh, what's that?
Yeah. Okay, are the symphony people in?
Yep, they're here.
Okay, great. Then welcome, Omaha Symphony Association. Would the representatives that are here please introduce themselves and their positions for the panelists? And then you have 2 minutes to do an introductory comments, then the panelists, which is timed, and then the panelists will give their comments, and then you'll have time to respond to their questions and anything else you want to say. Okay, for it.
I'm Jennifer Boomgarden Daoud. I'm the president and CEO of the Omaha Symphony.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Corey. I'm the Director of Development for the Omaha Symphony.
Right. The Omaha Symphony is a professional orchestra based in Omaha, Nebraska. We have a $10 million annual budget. We have 42 full-time musicians and 28 part-time musicians. 35% of our budget is spent on paying for our musicians who live, work, raise their families in our community. The Omaha Symphony is a powerful economic driver. We are the anchor tenant of the Holland Performing Arts Center. We are the orchestra for Opera Omaha, as well as touring programs, and the resident orchestra at the Jean Leahy Mall. 87% of our overall budget is spent on programming, and we reach over 250,000 annually. We have main stage programming that includes, of course, the core classical repertoire, but also family programming, as well as our Live with the Omaha Symphony series, which reaches a broad base of our community. Our education and community engagement mission is very important to us. It represents over 30% of what we do every year. We work with 300 schools and 50,000 students and teachers annually, and also have a very active community engagement program that we call Forte, which is all about amplifying the strengths of our community. It involves creating collaborative experiences, ensuring we represent our community on our stage, as well as ensuring access. We work very closely with the Jean Leahy Mall, are proud to be a partner of theirs, on an annual 4th and now 5th of July concert, as well as a Sounds of the City performance, which involves many of our Forte partners, and celebrating all that is Omaha in September each year. And have a very active digital presence, a virtual classroom that helps us break down the barriers of cost and time out of the classroom, as well as geography. Launched a new digital site this year called symphonyanywhere.com, where our community can engage with the orchestra whenever they want and how they want. And just did our 5th primetime NBC broadcast, and now have a 3-concert series on Nebraska Public Media.
Oh, how did you find that so absolutely perfectly, Jennifer? Unbelievable.
Thanks, Sherry.
Okay. All right. We'll start with our reviews. Maya, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's no surprise that Jennifer's presentation was timed out to the second, because I felt like that was how this application read, pretty timed out to the second. So most of my comments are going to be little things that I missed or would have wanted to see more of. I'll start, and I'm going through in the big buckets of the rubric, the evaluation rubric. Under artistic excellence, you provide evidence of a highly methodical approach to program development, which I appreciated. What I was missing was the gap between the evaluation work that you do and your program development, how you loop results of evaluation back into program development methodology. So I was missing that piece. I know you do it, just tell me how. Strong evidence that your programs and services align with your music, extensive, expansive array of programming, investment, digital access is to be commended. You provide evidence of significant overall value of the caliber of artists and programming you offer, but what I was missing was evidence that the community sees and values that. So I'm guessing they do based on the ticket sales and participation and attendance and so forth, but tell us specifically. So again, I'm guessing you assess that somewhere in your evaluation process, but tell us specifically. It can also be a powerful advocacy and education tool, which we can talk about here in a minute. One more note on program development. I enjoyed reading about the 360-degree approach and how you focus on reimagining the concert going experience, which is commendable. What I was missing in that was where, how, or if the community has any meaningful voice in program development. So you may be doing focus groups or having conversations or maybe using that evaluation from community, but in program development, but I didn't see it specifically called out. Under planning and evaluation, a robust evaluation plan, strong strategic planning effort. Would have loved to read some metrics or see some metrics or measurements or have one example. And I was so curious as to what the bold box was in your strategic plan. Didn't know what that meant. I was curious. I was trying to put the pieces together, but I couldn't quite get there. Well-diversified budget and strong development plan. Under outreach and engagement, strong evidence of a variety of community collaborations. Significant number of education and outreach programs. Would have loved to have learned more about the decision-making process around specific education and outreach offerings, such as the Forte program. How do you determine where to go, who to work with, so forth? Just wanted to get a little peek under the hood there around that particular program. Under audience engagement, appreciated seeing a specific audience development target here. Your digital strategies, impressive. I noted the use of the term snoot stigma in your strategic plan, which I presume means breaking down the barriers that audiences have or potential audiences have around classical music. I would have loved to see that pop up a bit more throughout your application. It's alluded to in season selection, but without a clear through line between audience engagement and program development, it still appears to me, you can tell me otherwise, that you are providing programming for people and not with people. So tell me more about how you're doing that with piece there. Under advocacy, you got a solid plan, but I'd encourage you as a well-resourced, sophisticated, and leader in the field organization to step it up in this moment. If making that advocacy or hammering home that advocacy and education message and the value of public investment in the arts isn't part of most every public event you're doing in this moment, anytime you're stepping up to the microphone and your television broadcast, all the ways that you are out in front of a lot of people, it should be because you have a significant reach and you can not only lift up your organization, but a lot of other organizations in the process. That being said, this application really sings and I really enjoyed it reading it. So thank you very much.
Okay, Dina?
Yeah, so a couple of things that Mia touched on, I touch on too, but responsive to the community. So I see you serve quite a few different groups, but I didn't know if you had an approach. Do you have to approach them for participation? How are kids identified who want to participate? Is it through the teacher or the school? I see you have after-hour performances, which is great. And you really have a great diverse array of programs, music mentors, the virtual classroom, going down to planning and evaluation. You really laid out your strategic plan, which looked pretty strong. Your community collaborators are diverse. Digital programs I put are key here for the audience development piece. And then I see you're getting ready to tour. So it looks like some outreach where you'll reach different audiences perhaps. Let's see, attracting new and underserved. I see you serve students from public, private, and alternative K through 12 schools, nonprofit organizations, specialized learning centers, and it looks like you serve the Native American school as well. So I think that's probably all I have to add.
Okay. Kellen?
Sorry about that. Yes. Yeah, great application, echoing a lot of the things that my had said about the about the just overall. Sorry, I kind of like lost my place now that I'm on the spot. So here we go. It's not always like this. So just the input, the community input piece, I was lacking on that. Just trying to figure out, you kind of talk about your primary audience members, secondary stakeholders, and how you get those inputs. But like bringing the community input up further up the chain, then kind of as a last thing, just kind of how you can flip that. Otherwise, the one thing, and it just kind of, maybe it caught me out because I'm not used to this, but I did appreciate like within artistic excellence, just the mentorship, the students with the professionals. I thought that was great. But just hopping back down, the outreach and engagement comments, and you actually kind of reiterate this again. There was 2 comments that kind of stuck, and maybe you can tell me what this all means. But the Snap Rush EBT to purchase for $5, I'm not familiar with those kind of programs or how that works to address those access needs, and like what you know about that program and how it works in the community. Like, what's the response? Do people really like that ability to do that? I'm just not familiar with it. So I need a little more information, because you talk about it again in additionally accessible services beyond the checklist optionals. So I was like, okay, well, I just need to know more about that. And then the just upon request, you just say not upon request, but like the American Sign Language, like being able to have that upon request, or is it at select performances only? I was just kind of confused about those little things, and that's kind of nitpicking because really you guys all just covered everything.
Okay, Kenneth?
Yeah, I don't have much to add from what my colleagues have mentioned so far, but I thought it was a really impressive application and organization. I think it's outstanding that you guys have such a large reach in person and virtually, which is really outstanding. I was a little overwhelmed by the hour-long video work sample at first. I think there were some technical issues with that link. But I have to say, I left it on and running while I read the rest of the application because I found it so entertaining. So well done there, really high quality video. I think you guys have strong admin and artistic leadership. I really appreciated how well detailed the budget was. And it seems like you guys have an audience demographic reach that almost matches the demographic makeup of your area. So that was really nice to see, and good to see that you guys are making efforts to reach new audiences with your innovative programming. And I really appreciated the well-rounded letters of support, including one from a state partner who was not NAC. So well done.
Okay. You now have approximately 10 minutes to go ahead and answer any of the questions, make any other comments you want.
Good. Well, thank you all for your thoughtful comments. I might start with my notes sort of from the back to the front. Kellen, when we talk about our outreach and access programs, the Omaha Symphony tickets start at $20 for us, so that's part of it. We actually have $10 tickets for students and teachers that they can get in advance. The SNAP program will be a new program for us, and we're trying to determine how to use that as a mechanism for folks to be able to receive those discounted $10 tickets. So that is a 25-26 initiative that we are still working to implement, but it falls in line with what we're currently doing for students and teachers. We also have a very active ticket access program. That program, though, works more through groups, right? So we work through VETTICs and we work through after school programs and things like that. So the SNAP program then would allow individuals to participate with some of those access points. Sign language interpreters are available upon request. And so just given enough notice, we can make that happen. Actually, we'll be working with our partners at Omaha Performing Arts to do some work with sound shirts next year as well. It's possible they spoke to that initiative, which allows folks with hearing impairments to feel the music. So that will be something new that we'll start in the access space as well. Dinah, you referenced touring. The Omaha Symphony does get outside of Omaha occasionally. We've been fortunate to create a lovely relationship with the community of Norfolk. Just did our second now sold out Christmas performance up there. We'll be returning this year. They're actually working at potentially creating a 3-concert series with our friends in Norfolk. And our friends in Grand Island have said, hey, can we play too? So we're going to do a Christmas performance in Grand Island this year as well. So yes, getting a little outside of the state. As far as how we involve our community in our programming, when we think of the main stage programming, the biggest voice that we have that can weigh in on that programming is our governing members, which is an advisory board that we have. And so we speak with them about upcoming programming. They kind of pressure test some of those things. So they are the most vocal sort of in-person voice for us in our programming. We do surveys, however, after every concert. So our audience does have an opportunity to tell us how they felt about it. And also do what we call a Net Promoter Score, right? Which is actually a for-profit mechanism, but also do a Net Promoter Score for every concert, for every series, and then for the Omaha programming overall. And that is one of the metrics we are tracking as part of our strategic plan. So the bigger place where the community has a very specific voice in programming is through Forte, because it's all about creating collaborative experiences. And so those concerts are very connected with those partners. We often find that we're working with partners that make music differently than we do. And so it requires us to build brand new arrangements for the orchestra in order for us to play with a particular partner. So that is a regular occurrence. So that is the biggest place, I think, where the community has a very direct impact on exactly what we're playing, because we make sure that we can play with them versus them playing with us. Let's see. When you talked a little bit about the bold box, Micah, the bold box in the strategic plan are the things that are important to us. They're opportunities that we see on the horizon, but they're things that we don't feel like we can necessarily accomplish in the life of the plan. And so we want to be planting those seeds. We want to have those on our horizon. We want to be sort of driving towards those, but they're not things we're going to be able to accomplish in the life of the plan. It's kind of the definition of bold box. When we talk a little bit about sort of evidence of value to the community, I think it's in the numbers of partners that we continue to work with, the longevity of those relationships. When we think about Forte, the goal really is to create long-term relationships. It's not to be the one-hit wonder, right? That goes out, does an amazing thing, and then leaves, right? So you see a number of our partners coming back and working with us over and over again. The best example of that is probably our longtime relationship with El Museo Latino, which has been concerts in the South Omaha area, them being on our September concert at the park, our Sounds of the City concert, them actually joining a main stage live with the Omaha Symphony performance when we did a Latin Fire program. And as Kenneth said, they were also featured on our broadcast this year. So really being able to build those long-term relationships and meet the needs of those partners are really the hallmarks of Forte. So I think that's a good indicator. Our Net Promoter Score is generally in the upper 80s or low 90s for all of our concerts. So we feel good about that in terms of a Net Promoter Score. The ticket sales, I think, are probably also a good indicator, and ticket sales, particularly single ticket sales, have been particularly strong. As we look back in our database over the last 12 years and look at single ticket sales, of the top 10 single ticket sales for our main stage series over the last 12 years, 5 of those have been this season. The season we're just closing. So we feel like we're paying attention, we're listening to what our audience is telling us in their surveys, is what our governing members are telling us, what our community is telling us, and folks are coming out and enjoying the orchestra.
All right.
Did I miss
any other comments? Okay, well then I guess that ends this session. We thank you both very much for joining us and giving us your information. And now the panelists will do any adjustments they want to their scores, and we'll end this with you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. I'm supposed to take off, right, Sherry?
Yeah, you are. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, everybody.
Thumbs up when you're done. Okay, Kenneth. Okay, great. All right, we're still ahead of the game, which is unbelievable. Is the Omaha Conservative Music here yet?
We are. Hi, I'm Megan, our executive director.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you, is if you would, do you have anybody else, or you're single?
I do. I have Nady with us, who is our grant writer and communications manager.
Okay, you have 2 minutes to do an introductory comments, and it is timed. Then the panelists will give you their reviews from the written application. Then you'll have time to come back and answer any questions or make any other comments and responses you want. Okay,
great.
Go for it.
All right. The Omaha Conservatory of Music was founded in 2001. We serve about just over 2,000 students every year in music lessons, classes, camps, and our String Sprouts program. We have a robust financial aid program. We serve about 200 of our private lesson students with financial aid. And our String Sprouts program is a low to no cost program based off of self-reported income. We have about 800 students that take our private lessons here on our campus. Then we have our 900 Sprouts. And then we have outreach programming that are partnerships with schools, where we're doing music programming at schools like Quest and Madonna, Friedel, places that have invited us in, Kennedy Elementary. Our Sprouts program also runs the orchestra program at Mandela, as well as runs a robust String Sprouts program there as well. We have a staff of about 20, and we have about 44 artist faculty who are on staff with us, which means we pay them salaries and benefits and retirement. So really focusing on how do we create good jobs for artists here in Omaha. And then I think that, we're really in a moment of kind of, after 20 years of existence, looking at who are we today? What do we need to do in the future? And we're doing a lot of sort of business analysis of where we're going in the next 20 years.
Okay, great. Then we'll go into the panelist reviews. Primary reviewer was Maya.
Yeah, that's me. Thank you. So I'm going to focus my comments around the 3 buckets in the evaluation in the scoring rubric. So I'm going to start in for the artistic quality section. You guys demonstrate a disciplined and methodical approach to program development, delivery, and evaluation. I wanted to see some indication that community interest drives some program and service development. It probably happens, but I didn't see that specifically in the application. Seemed to be a missing piece. For example, you offer a rock band that came out of somewhere. Where did it come out of? And if obviously you do it, what other kinds of musical ensembles or genres are you contemplating? And might any of those belong to underserved members of your community? So again, I'm guessing the band happened for a reason. Tell me about that, and tell me about how you're thinking about that. Because clearly you've put a pin or put a flag in the ground saying you're not going to just focus on a particular kind of music. Tell me how you're going to expand there. Your programs and services strongly align with your mission. Love the title of the Nothing But Fret program. Thought that was great. So a shout out for that. You provide evidence that through your credentials and the evaluation results that you shared, that your artists and programming have significant value to the people who participate. And that's significant. And thank you for calling that out specifically. As it relates to the work samples, I really wanted to see some samples that gave me a window into the caliber of teaching and learning that was occurring. I know there are considerations around including young folks in video, but you do offer some programs for older adults. really was hankering to see that in action and didn't get it. So give me a window into that I can really sink my teeth into. Under programming and evaluation, clear methodical approach to evaluation. Really appreciated the specific information that you provided on what constitutes artistic quality. When you say that, what do you mean? And you were very specific about that. Around strategic planning, I wanted to know more about strategic planning engagement. Wanted to know who received the family surveys. Is that current families that participate, or is that other people? Are you engaging the community outside this particular tool around engagement for the plan? If you're not, seemed to me a significant and surprising omission for a really planning forward organization that you appear to be. So appreciated your focus and thinking around earned income. That's important, but wanted to see more about community here. Also have no idea who Sarah Boyd is. So if you're going to reference somebody, I'm not from Nebraska. Tell me who she is and why she matters, or leave her out. I'm sure she's a lovely person, but appreciated seeing the decision-making tool there. Thorough development plan, but could not find development staff listed anywhere save a contracted grant writer. So I wanted to understand a bit more about who manages development work on a day-to-day basis. I know leadership has a role, as they always do, but just needed to understand that a bit more in the day-to-day. Under outreach, lots of community partnerships, ample education and outreach programs. You're very dialed into the deficits in music education in your community, and you've stepped in clearly to provide needed quality music instruction and experiences. Again, what's not clear to me here is which of the current programming you're offering serves underserved populations that they have. Let me rephrase that. That was awkwardly phrased. Let me try again. What programming are you offering that underserved communities have specifically asked for? That's a better way to put it. Again, maybe the rock band was that, but what else is there? And if not, if there isn't anything else, what are you contemplating in that space? Around advocacy and education, that section was kind of underpowered for me. From an organization of this caliber, you need to step up, and I needed to see that here in this section. In this moment in particular, when education and advocacy around the importance of public investment in the arts and the arts writ large, you've got a big voice, and wanted to see something that was more aligned with the caliber of the programming and services that you offer. So that's an observation as well as a nudge around advocacy and education. Thanks.
Great.
Okay, and then Dina.
Hello. So I see that in our rubric here, responsive to community, I have some notes that say that your String Sprouts program was developed in response to the need for high quality early music education in low income and rural communities. And I just want to know a little bit about that, and how do you determine those, what you need to do in those communities, because I'm sure there are statistics and other things that identify those communities as low income and rural, but I want to know a little bit more about that. You seem to fill in the gaps in terms of music education and serving audiences. Spring Sprouts, actually, now in my next section, says that it's in-school programming that is tuition free. Okay, alrighty. You provide free instruments. You cater to all students. Your financial aid ensures the cost is never a barrier, and you allow children to learn an instrument. So I don't know if kids are still learning instruments in the school, but I guess if they're not, they can come to your organization and learn an instrument. So that's good. I I have here in my notes structured evaluation process to assess your programs and artistic excellence. These metrics you closely monitor, and that helps you make data-informed decisions. And you also provide performance evaluation for teachers. So you're in the process of developing a strategic plan for 2027. You're in the last current year of your strategic plan, okay. And you're trying to develop a business model to guide your direction. Okay, outreach and engagement. So you work with a lot of the local organizations, the symphony, opera, ballet, also the Jocelyn Museum as well. So I just have a question. I have, what about multicultural organizations, disability organizations, hospitals? Didn't know if you had any outreach there or any partnerships there. Says for audience development, I have you address barriers to geography, economics, and access to the arts education. Still just wanted to know a little bit more about how you do that. I do see the note here about the rock band, jazz groups, multiple entries into music education. Are those programs free as well? So you're in terms of new and underserved audiences, you are targeting communities that have a limited access, as I said earlier. You reach out to the Indian Mission School. Oh, there it is, extend program to students with disabilities. Okay. All righty. You're doing a really great job in terms of trying to reach kids and young people that need access to the arts, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Kenneth?
Yeah, I think you guys have really strong initiatives that have a nice reach into your direct and surrounding communities, which is really great to see. I agree with what Maya said about the work sample, although I think there was a video on the website that didn't quite look at the work that you do on a microscopic level, but it gave a really nice overview of the history of the organization and was very moving. You guys seem to have really nice, strong financial leadership, which is great. A nice balance of artistic versus administrative salaries in the budget attachment. So kudos to you all for making sure that your faculty and your teaching artists are well compensated for their hard work. And a nice donor base there as well. I would encourage you guys to get into touch with the Nebraskans for the Arts. If you haven't already, I think that is a really great thing to do to get your foot in the door for making sure those policymakers know who you are and what it is that you do. And really nice letters of support. Although I would consider maybe adding one in future applications from a parent or a student that's been directly impacted by that work to tug on those heartstrings a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Kellen?
Yes, I feel like I'm like following up all the great comments, and I'm just kind of briefly not trying to give you the same information, but really liked the extending your programming, like the String Sprouts, tuition-free music, all of the things that you're doing with the Indian Mission School and financial aid, just being an ongoing priority. We're not all clear on like the landscape of what is lacking, just based, I'm in South Dakota. I have no idea what the school district is lacking, what programs are being left out. So, I'm even like writing notes, like, how does that even play into a bigger picture of understanding like the significance of these programs? But the continuing ed was really amazing to see that there's ongoing opportunities for education, not just for youth. Maybe different work samples could have emphasize some of the other things that are lacking, but I really appreciated the link to the programs, because being able to explore your organization a little more on that level was really nice. Although it's kind of open-ended and I literally go on a deep dive and stuff. I really appreciated the teacher training. But the String Sprouts really stood out to me. There was other things real quick. Just that your outreach to the low income and rural communities was super strong, and just like meeting the communities where they're at. Just thought that was really like a positive thing through your programming. So other than that, I got nothing. You're doing great work. Thank you.
All right. Now you have approximately 10 minutes to answer any of the questions, make any responses that you want.
All right, I'll do my best and feel free to ask me if I miss something. I think, one of the things that kind of came up is strategic planning, and I think that's a good place to start to address things. I arrived here about 2 years ago, and so I've been sort of working us through this kind of iteration of our strategic plan. And one of the things I've identified is that we have really amazing programming, and now we really need to build up the infrastructure to support that programming. And so the first step, we're going to do kind of a longer strategic planning process where the first step is to shore up our business model. So Sarah Boyd is a business analyst that we're working with here. And so she and I are going to be looking at what are different models that we need to be thinking about for the next 20 years that will make us more sustainable, knowing that funding cuts are coming. We just experienced the NEA one on Friday. And so we're really looking at what do we need to do from a just function point there. And then once we kind of understand that, then we're going to go to that next level of engagement. So we'll be doing some engagement with our artist faculty. We'll be doing some engagement meetings with our families, with our partners. I've already started some of these conversations with our funders. So trying to get like that 360 lens on what's going to happen. And then we'll figure out from there with the new business model and then with the feedback, what are adjustments to the programming that we need to make? What are new programs that need to come in? So that's probably going to be a year-long process for us over the next year, which will be exciting. We do every year to the Rock Lab, we do a family survey every year. And so that's sort of one of the things that came out of that family survey was folks saying, we're in guitar lessons and you guys have chamber groups and you have other kinds of programming that support the classical musician kids. But like, what about us that are here to learn percussion and guitar and voice? We want an outlet for that. So that was really sort of the impetus for that several years ago. And it's done really well. And we hope to see, as that flourishes, are there opportunities for us to do things with jazz more deeply or folk music? But we really want to wait and see how that like organically evolves. Right now, we've got some of our artist faculty who are in a jazz ensemble for us. And we're doing some, like events, trying to get families to come and experience it. We do a partnership with North Omaha Music and Arts, which is a jazz organization in North Omaha. And so that is it's also, kind of a multicultural reach. We're kind of working with them, and he comes in and does some performances with us. So we kind of are trying to feel out like, how do we support them in doing what they're doing with jazz? And then how can they also support our students? And I think there's probably a longer term partnership that will evolve out of that, but they're also going through their own change. You all asked a little bit about how we work with differing audiences. We have partnerships with the Autism Action Partnership here to help make sure that our programs are accessible and to give us feedback on how we work with students. We do a lot to make sure. And we've had students that are missing limbs. We make sure that we partner with like the university, and they have made prosthetics for students so that they can play the violin, which is a really neat partnership that came out a couple of years ago. We've had a couple of students. We have several blind students that we work to make adaptations in the program for. So we really try to do it in that sort of meet them where they are, case by case. And then our development team goes out and does that work and makes those connections. Y'all asked about our development team. I'll tell you, we actually are in transition. We had a development director for many years. He retired, and in his retirement, I sort of stepped in and was like, we need to do some re-strategizing around our development anyway. So I'm really taking the lead in the development department. Nady is our grant writer, and so or grant manager. She oversees the grant process, which is a large amount of our income. And she has a grant writer that she oversees in that process. And then I have Gretchen, who is our development and community or donor and community manager. So she's doing a lot of stewardship, cultivation, kind of getting our special events together. So we're kind of a team of 3 that also wear like an extra hat. So in the long run, when we're looking at this business model, we know that we're eventually probably going to have to rehire that position. But we're trying to kind of figure out who we're going to be next before we dive into that. Thank you for the feedback about work samples. Really helpful to hear that. And I think that's something we can improve on. As far as String Sprouts and the impetus for that, String Sprouts was developed 20 or 13 years ago. And it was really because we were hearing from community schools and from community members that kids were not getting access to music across Omaha in different areas. And so the way that program works is that we're invited in to be a partner. So it might be someplace in South Omaha, it might be someplace in North Omaha, it might be someplace in West Omaha, it can be anywhere, but generally it's the partner, the community that's kind of like identifying us as someone that will fill a gap for them. And so that invitation is really important. And then we partner really closely with them to sort of do the grassroots kind of going to their community festivals and meeting with families and hearing their stories so that we make sure that the teacher we're putting out there understands the community, that they kind of have access to the right people in the community. So it's an ongoing, evolving process over the years, but the other piece of that was that we were seeing that our communities that are traditionally under-resourced were falling behind in school. And there's a lot of data that music education, if you experience it in the first 5 years, gives you brain bumps. And so between 3 and 8, there's a couple of times where that music education will kind of like, your brain will get a little like juiced up from that experience. And so we wanted to make sure that finances were not a barrier to kids experiencing that. So that's kind of the impetus of that program. And it started with just violin, and then families were asking, well, what about cello? What about bass? And so it started to kind of evolve and encompass more instruments from there. Advocacy, yes, I hear you about advocacy. I think that's an interesting thing for us to think about as we go into our next strategic plan, and how we can have a bigger voice in that area. We definitely even think from a PR standpoint is something that we have room to grow in. So I think we will continue down that road. Let's see if there's any. How do we play into the larger strategic plan? Anything I didn't answer that you guys would like me to touch base on it that I missed?
Okay, I think that's probably all then, unless you have any other last comment.
No, I just appreciate getting to be here and to share our story, and your feedback was extremely helpful as we sort of, our little team here, this was our first NAC application together. So very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And you can go ahead and that'll end our session. So you can say goodbye and the panelists will adjust their scores.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
Do we know if Opera Omaha is in the waiting room?
They are both here.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's move right on then. Would those of you who are representatives of Opera Omaha, please identify yourself in your position for the panelist. And then you'll have 2 minutes of introductory comments. The panelists will then give their reviews, and you'll have time at the end to answer questions and give more comments and responses. Okay.
Good morning. My name is Allison Swenson, and I am the General Director of Opera Omaha.
And good morning. I'm Shannon Walenta, and I am the Chief Operating Officer.
Hey, your 2 minutes starts now.
Excellent. Well, thank you to the panel and to NAC for reviewing our grant application. You may know, as you have read in our application, that we are the only professional opera company in the state of Nebraska, and we serve the entire region, not only with our fully staged and concert performances at the Orpheum Theater and other venues in Omaha, but through a robust engagement program that serves not only children and adults who traditionally do receive arts programming, but also community partners that don't typically have access to the arts. You will notice that one of our support letters this year was from the Alternatives to Violence Project, and that is the type of partner that we serve through the Holland Community Opera Fellowship. I have been in my role now for 2.5 years. I came to Omaha from the Santa Fe Opera, which is the largest opera festival in the United States. And one of my early priorities was to increase the number of public performances that we have so that we can better fulfill our mission and reach more people without changing our budget size. And we are able to do that this year by almost doubling the number of performances that we have. And we have added a new family opera series that reaches audiences of all ages. We begin rehearsals on Monday for Fantastic Mr. Fox, which we will perform outdoors at Lauritsen Gardens, 4 performances from June 5th through 8th, including one relaxed performance that is tailored for individuals with sensory sensitivities.
Okay, perfect. Then Kenneth, you are the primary.
Thank you. Yes, I think you guys as an organization seem to be doing a lot of work in the community and filling gaps, as you mentioned, as the only professional opera company in the state, which is commendable. I really enjoyed seeing that you guys have some offerings in bilingual, different languages. The upcoming season seems really entertaining and timely. Some of the programs that I just kind of wanted to pull out and complement were the HCOF program, a really great tool to invest in local talents there, and seems to be providing outstanding mentorship to those fellows. So that was really great to see. Likewise, the Opera to Go initiative seems like a great idea to get into those non-traditional spaces. And the Opera 360 experience seems absolutely wonderful and really shows the value of those elements of production that are not always in the forefront for audiences' minds. Excuse me. I really enjoyed the audiovisual sample of past work. I would encourage you guys to include a direct link to the organization's website as part of those materials in the future. Would have really loved to check that out. But those printed materials, they had a really nice and slick design elements to them. So those were nice to see. I think you guys have a robust program evaluations and are thinking outside of the traditional boxes to garner responses and feedback from across the community. So that was nice to see. The literature review and the strategic plan, that document seems like a great tool to include in the process. So I enjoyed seeing that. I also really appreciated the transparency in the note saying that the new strategic plan is really ambitious. But you guys seem to be in a good position to take all of that on, and it seems thoughtful and comprehensive. Just gave me a little bit of pause. I don't know that it's anything to hang my hat on here, but I think it was more a result of maybe this kind of popcorn idea of getting ideas or thoughts and putting that together in the strategic plan. But there was some mention of a weakness of the organization being a tension between DEIA and artistic quality, and also the idea that the traditional canon may not seem relevant to modern audiences. And I would just challenge and encourage you guys to think about those kind of things as complementary of one another and not necessarily in opposition, but more of a Venn diagram, if you will. I thought the changes in board fiscal sponsorship seemed like a really smart avenue to help maintain the goals of the organization. And you guys have really strong administrative team, it seems, but I would have appreciated the inclusion of bios for the artistic leadership as well in the application. Some further breakdown in the budget attachment would have been helpful, especially for the marketing cost. Especially for an organization like yours that is the one and only of its kind. I think you do have great foundation support, though, and you seem to be taking advantage of several local government funding opportunities, which is great to see. And really nice outreach efforts and partnerships with other organizations.
Okay, thank you. Kellen?
Yes, another amazing application. Kenneth, you touched on a lot of points and some things that I had thought about as well. The artistic excellence, and I was just kind of curious too with just a little bit more on like the significance of being regionally even one of the, you know, premier like opera houses. I was just more in just kind of what that significance is. I mean, I think you guys are doing awesome work in Omaha, and that's like super commendable, but also like we're trying to get an opera started in South Dakota. What does that look like? You know, what does that reach? Because you guys are like, for our opera singers, you would be the only resource for them that's that close. We just hosted a revival of the Giants of the Earth, and I'm sorry, this is a little personal, but the just that ability to bring in professional opera singers to our community, they packed the house. So opera is definitely alive and kicking and in different parts of our Midwest. And I just like commend you for all that work, but just super encouraging to see that you're there, and just wanted you to know, like, we're seeing you down there. And so just recognizing that's kind of a big deal to be down there. Everything looked good with the valuations, planning, development opportunities, expansion. I did come down on like community and engagement comments here. Just was confused. There was like a little bit of a narrative about, and maybe that's just my personal, I'm gonna skip that. But there was something that and I'm not sure exactly where I read it. And this is kind of controversial, I guess, as far as board member participation and fundraising, but it seemed like you had like a contribution limit or minimum for your board members. I was just curious about that, like how that makes up like your overall fundraising. I know some people require that to be on boards, but that's also kind of limiting. And then how that kind of plays into the bigger picture of like development. And maybe you do community committees, which is great. But I've just noticed some, you know, with the stigmas that kind of come behind opera, you know, having you have to be on the board, you have to raise a certain amount, you have to appreciate, you know, I just think sometimes that can be limiting as well. And maybe that's not, it's just something that stuck out of something that I've seen maybe organizations getting away from. And I just didn't know how your organization was addressing that. That's all.
Okay, Dina?
Yes, so it looks like you have a varied programs and services that you provide. You have the Family Opera Series, that's really neat to read about, outdoor concert, fully produced opera, semi-stage concert performance, community recitals, poetry, music projects, opera to go. Value to the community, you strive to provide the community with production values and talent. And wanted to know a little bit more about value to the community and who you target and how you target it. I did appreciate a letter that showed the value to the writing program and the Omaha Alternatives to Violence Project. I was moved by that letter. Evaluation and techniques. Looks like you have several different ways to evaluate. You have a 3-year strategic plan and you meet quarterly to review progress, so that's good. And down in outreach and engagement, looks like you partner with quite a few different organizations. And even through your Circle Tickets, I guess, Circle Tickets program, which provides free tickets to nonprofit organizations. It looks like you have a wide variety of people who participate in that program as well. So let's see, in terms of audience development, it looks like you are going to do or develop a marketing initiative to grow audiences. And I won't comment on the advocacy. I'm gonna let Mia comment on the advocacy, but you're doing some good work. I would agree with Kellen about some of those other organizations that typically are not exposed or have not been aware of opera, you know, and how you reach those folks and bring them in. Thank you.
Okay. Then, oh, Maya.
Thanks. My comments will be brief. Around artistic excellence, I wanted to see more direct connection between how programs and services are responsive to the community. Wanted you to tell me just straight up specifically, here's how our programs and services are responsive to the community, because it's in the evaluation rubric. And you should address it. Don't ask us to infer it. No doubt they are, based on the quality of what you're doing, but tell us specifically. And then also around the relative value of what you provide to the community, tell us specifically how the community receives value. I'm guessing you assess that through your evaluation. You ask your audience or participants, tell us how this offering provides value to you, or tell us what you got out of the experience, or how it made you feel, or whatever. But tell us that specifically, because again, that's in the evaluation rubric, and we're looking for it. Under planning and evaluation, under strategic planning, wanted to see more information around external engagement activities. How are you bringing in other folks into the development of your strategic plan? Also wanted to see some either key performance indicators or some measurements. How do you know that your plan is doing what it is outlining for your organization? So tell me more about that. Solid education under outreach and engagement, solid education outreach section. Love the Opera to Go program. Under audience engagement, audience development, great plan. Kudos on the specific targets. There we saw specific targets, and it's great to see. Also kudos on the community circle program and the community panel for HCOPF. And then to the advocacy education section, it's great to see a list of the policymakers that you're directly contacting. That's great. That being said, you're a big deal, and you have an opportunity to do much more in the advocacy space. So I would recommend, especially in this moment, that you guys think about a plan that is more aggressive around communicating value. And although emails are great, letters are great, individual calls and connections for decision makers are important. I noted that for the mayor, which is great, but so state and federal elected officials need to hear from you directly outside of an email. Although those are important, they count those. Direct connection, I think, is critical. You're a well-respected, highly valued member of your community and state, and you can step up, and when you do, it makes a big impact. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Okay, you have approximately 10 minutes. Go ahead and answer any of the questions or any other responses you want to make.
Thank you. And thank you all so much for your time, thoughtful review, insightful review, and feedback. We appreciate it so much, and we take all of it to heart genuinely. An easy question to address at the start is the board minimum contribution. So it had been our practice to require a minimum contribution of $8,000 to serve on the Opera Omaha board, and our board voted in January to eliminate the minimum contribution. So there is no longer a minimum contribution requirement to serve on the Opera Omaha board. We do ask board members to make a contribution that is meaningful to them. And that's a conversation that they have with me and that they have with the Director of Development at the start of the fiscal year to talk about what giving looks like to them. I will say, we also require our board members to be subscribers. So that is the only real financial requirement is to subscribe to our season, and tickets start at $19. So it is not overly burdensome for most people. And of course, we can always make exceptions as needed. So going back to Kenneth's comments, thank you. Thank you again. The tension between DEIA and artistic quality. Our strategic planning session was immediately following the annual Opera America conference, where the word quality had come up as a coded word that some opera companies were using to defend practices that were not in alignment with DEIA values. And so that isn't necessarily something that Opera Omaha thinks that there is a tension between. It just so happened that we all came back, and in the course of our strategic planning process, we were dissecting what the word quality means when we're using it in a way that is not coded, if that makes sense. So that's in part why you see that come up in the strategic plan. In terms of artistic leadership, very happy to provide a bio of our Director of Artistic Administration. I serve as the Artistic Director, essentially, although my title is General Director. I do choose all of the programs and I oversee casting and hiring of artists, just as an FYI, and we can make that clearer in future proposals. However, also very happy to include the bio of our Director of Artistic Administration, who makes recommendations for casting and who handles the care and feeding of singers when they're with us. We do also have a principal guest conductor in the form of Stephen White, who has been with us for a number of years, and we gave him more responsibility and a formal title 2 years ago. Very happy to include Stephen's bio in the future. And yes, very happy to include a breakdown of the marketing budget. And that is something that I am paying attention to keenly. I think that actually we can invest more in marketing and telling our story than we currently are. And in fact, Shannon and I had that conversation 2 weeks ago about what does it look like if we invest 20 to 25% more in marketing next year. What are we investing in? What are the tools that we're using to tell our story more effectively? Let us see. Value to the community and how we express that more directly. Thank you. That is great feedback. I am hopeful that the letters that we supported with the proposal show in their own words the value that we have for the partners that we support. But I do understand how we could be more direct in answering that question to the rubrics, certainly in the future. The value to our community, there is an intangible piece, which I think all of the panelists touched on, which is how live performance makes you feel. But it's important to capture that and to substantiate it to the best of our ability. There are also tangibles that we can communicate, including economic impact and the number of jobs that we provide. And to Kellen's point about serving the region, the number of out-of-town and out-of-state guests that we bring in to Omaha and Nebraska for our performances. We had a performance on Thursday evening where we had ticket buyers from over 20 states, and we filled a lot of hotel rooms. So those things are valuable, and we can include that type of information going forward. The strategic plan and more KPIs, totally hear you. And that is something that we have been working on, is especially early in my tenure, what data points are most important to us. Because yes, ticket sales matter, but to me, it is much more about attendance and engagement. So I would rather see more people in the hall than focus as much on the revenue piece of ticket sales. And even in an inflationary environment, I'm not interested in increasing the cost of tickets. So yes, thank you. Thank you for that feedback. And then advocacy. Yes, you're right. And I'm not a native Nebraskan. I'm getting my feet on the ground here and learning the players and how they work together and how our board can help me make those connections that I don't inherently have as a still new to town person. But it's no, I don't want to say excuse because I don't think that we have done a poor job, but I do think that we can do more.
Okay, anything else that anybody wants answered, or you want any other comments? Okay, well then we'll consider this session done and you can leave. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
And
you.
you too, Shannon.
Thank you very
And
much.
panelists, do your adjust your scoring and so on. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay, everybody. Kenneth, I didn't see a thumbs. Okay, it was hidden behind your name. Okay. All right, our next one is 11:40, so we actually have about 10 minutes. Am I right? Yeah, 11:40. All right, so enjoy your 10-minute break. And
Sounds good.
Rachel, did you have something to say?
Nope. Sounds
Okay,
great.
perfect. Thank you. Are we ready? Are-
Panelists, when you are back, perfect. If you could turn on your video.
Okay, there we go.
And Sam, I think you can let in our next applicant. Perfect. Oh, Elizabeth, are you back?
I'm ready.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. I think we're ready, Sherry.
Okay, great. The next application is for Union for Contemporary Art. And would the representatives of that organization please identify themselves and their position for our panelists? Then you have 2 minutes, which is timed, to give us kind of an introductory overview. Then the panelists will review the application, and then you'll have time to make other responses and answer questions. Okay, go for it, please.
Hi, I'm Lakeisha Green. I'm the executive director for the Union for Contemporary Art, and it's just me here today representing. So good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for having the opportunity to present today. Here at the Union, our mission still remains steadfast that we're here to strengthen our cultural and social fabrics of the community by using arts as a powerful vehicle for positive and social change, especially here in North Omaha, where we sit on this historic part of the city. I'm very excited. I'm the new executive director. In about 3 weeks, I'll be here for a year. So learning the fabric and the history of this city and this organization has been pivotal since my tenure here. Over this past year, and especially these last 4 months, the union has undergone significant operational changes that have been aimed at enhancing our long-term sustainability and deepening our community impact and connection. This has included a thoughtful restructuring program that has taken place in key departments through the refinement of internal systems that we've had in hiring critical leadership, especially with our artistic programming, such as our theater arts program, which lay dormant. We just hired our new producing artistic director, Denise Chapman, back to the community, back here at the Union. So we're real excited about that we will actually be able to move forward with a season this year. So that is exciting. But these are very critical times that we are in, especially in our engagement with the organization and community. These changes were very much so necessary to continue on with our operations and closely look at our strategic goals. As you all see, we connected our strategic plan to that. I wasn't a part of making that strategic plan. I inherited a lot of things, and that was one of the things that I inherited. But I do believe in that strategic plan. It is very well written. So I look forward to answering any questions and listening to your feedback on this application.
Thank you very much. All right, primary reviewer is Dina.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So we have a rubric here, and first is artistic excellence. So your artists can come in and create and support. You create and support emerging artists, and then you have the exhibition space and all. Then you also have the garden, where you distribute food that's grown in the garden to community members, and weekly produce stands. So I was trying to reconcile all of that with your mission, which I know includes inspiring positive social change within the community. And I know gardens are a proper way to do that, but I was trying to put it all together. You have 7 core programs, so I thought those were outlined well, description-wise. Value to the community. So the union's a community-driven organization, and you drive decision-making for programming. I wanted to know a little bit more about that. And I understand that you fill gaps where programs and resources are needed. So I was trying to understand how you identify where those gaps are. Let's see, evaluation techniques is next, excuse me. So it looks like you're developing a new evaluation model so you can further develop your long-term goals for programming. And I didn't know what the new model maintain. So, but that's exciting. What kind of feedback do you get from the artists who participate and exhibit their work at the union? Maybe I didn't see that, but I was wondering what their feedback is. Strategic plan, let's see. You've got one that's 2025 to 27, okay. And we go down to outreach and engagement. So I thought that you have some good collaborators, schools, contemporary arts, Bemis, Great Plains Theater, those kind of things. Your marketing campaign, it says you target North Omaha households. So it's North Omaha must be where there's a need to develop your audience, I suppose. And then for attracting new and underserved audiences, I like that you practice radical hospitality, which I had never heard it called that, but where you waive the ticket fees for anyone that wants to come in. So, and then you have scholarships as well. You do prioritize underrepresented audiences, BIPOC artists. And then the policy makers and elected officials probably needs some more development on what your outreach activities are to them.
Okay, thank you very much. Maya?
So I'm second reader on this one. Double click on most of what Dina said previously. Clearly an organization whose work is responsive to the community. I too had questions about the community garden, although I love meet people where they are, right? And food's an important part of that. So help me connect the dots as it relates to how an arts organization gets in the garden business and what that, just connect the dots for me a little bit there. But again, I recognize when I saw it, it was like, well, of course, but yet you've got to connect those dots for us in a way that doesn't feel like mission drift. In the artistic excellence section, my guess is that artists and programs have significant value to the community you serve, because again, you seem very rooted in community, but you didn't really tell me that specifically, as in, your community tells you, that they value this particular program or that particular program. I recognize also, though, as you mentioned in the application, that evaluation for your audience can be a bit of a challenge. And so just thinking about how you assess or gauge your impact on their lives, I think, and then tell us, and tell other decision makers. I think that's really important. And perhaps in your strategic plan and another evaluation, you can think about that in a more direct way. In the planning evaluation section, wanted you to close the loop between your evaluation work and program design. How specifically do you take the evaluation that you're doing and use it or leverage it for program design or program iteration and so forth? No doubt you do. Just tell me specifically about how you do that. Really, pivoting to the strategic plan, really loved seeing all the data collection and kind of showing me under the hood there of who you were talking to and who you were engaging with. Really appreciated seeing that. This is a hobby horse of mine. Really want to see you guys think about some specific key performance indicators or metrics for your plan so that you know how you're moving forward in achieving the goals it's setting out. Under development, as you clearly call out, you receive a significant percentage of your income from foundations, and that's commendable, because it helps. It allows you to do things that maybe other organizations who have other funding sources can't do, but it also gives me a little bit of heartburn in the current environment we're in right now, as I'm sure it probably does you as well. So I was glad to see that you're thinking about an annual fund and developing an annual fund or an endowment, so that again you're thinking about how you can address financial viability, with more diverse revenue streams. Under outreach and engagement, solid community collaborators and partners. And it was clear that your collaboration and partnership mutually benefit both sides of the equation, right? It isn't just a one-way partnership. You clearly are demonstrating how who you're partnering with is benefiting from the work that you're doing together. You model audience development efforts that are rooted in where they are and who they serve. So really appreciated reading that. And you describe a place and an organization in a just sort of an environment where the community you serve feels welcome. And that's back to, as Dina mentioned, the radical hospitality. I think that's, you know, having as a real grassroots rooted in community organization is clear that your community feels welcome, or you describe a place that they do feel welcome. On to advocacy education, really appreciated the stated goal of building some direct relationships around, I'm going to guess, a geographical area that's where the organization is based and where probably most of the folks you serve are located. I'm going to guess those conversations go beyond just the 24th and Lake area, but also touch on the importance of ongoing arts investment more broadly. If not, would highly recommend and expect to see that they do, especially in this current funding environment. That again, it's important obviously to make sure your local policymakers are dialed into your immediate geographic area, but I'd encourage you to take it a couple of degrees out and make sure that you're talking about overall investment in the sector for both your organization and statewide. Otherwise, I really enjoyed reading it and learning more about this really dynamic community focused organization.
Okay, Kellen?
Thank you. Yes, this application got me so happy. I was very excited just to see all the wonderful programming you're providing. The arts and gardening, yes, all day. I think like those kind of things and just the expansion of like, I always think like artists are plant people. They just like, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm only seeing the plant people out there, but like there's such a connection. And we even like look at like the economy between like service industry workers and like bringing produce to your work that you grew at your studio. There's just like a lot of like really interesting connections there. And of course, we're all in the Midwest and we're surrounded by farms. So embrace. I just thought all of that just makes sense. I love seeing that just innovation and thinking, you're responsive to your community's needs. It seems like maybe sometimes that could be to a fault because it kind of disrupts planning. But if you're seeing a need and you're like trying to reach those things and make those things happen a little more efficiently, it feels like you're doing those, you're being really responsive to what those needs are. And I really appreciated like the breakdown of like the community served, like the North and South Omaha, not being from the area and not really understanding like the dynamics of like how you can best reach those communities and why you're there. So that was very helpful that you kind of put that in there. And you mentioned being a social justice organization. It just like those things just kind of leaning into that. Just because that's where a lot of the real work that we're seeing is being done. It just was a really encouraging thing to see that in the application as well. And then this print focus. Yes, I think we're all excited about digital and yeah, you can do that and it eliminates costs and it creates access, but it actually also creates barriers. So I was like really excited that you're just like, we're doing print. And then there's some cool art that comes out of print too, you know, not just like thinking your regular copying, like screen printing, or there's different ways to get more grassroots when the printing efforts are like an issue, but love that. And we're seeing zines and all sorts of stuff. So it just made me really excited that you're still like looking at that as an option. And so just kudos all around. I just thought it was a great application. I appreciate the work you're doing. And it was really like a guiding light for our communities to hopefully look at more of your work later.
Okay, Kenneth?
Yeah, I too was really impressed by the organization and the application. I think you guys have a really clear and excellent commitment to artists, offering space and resources and avenues of learning to both artists and community members is a really necessary and commendable service. I would have appreciated a little bit more description of artist work in the programming schedule itself. But I think you guys had really powerful work samples and a really complimentary website that helped fill some of those gaps. Everyone's commented on it. I feel like I have to too, because I just think it's lovely, but the Abundance Garden is amazing. I think that's an outstanding community asset. I know in Texas, at least, I imagine in Nebraska as well, one of our state government priority areas is natural resources and agriculture. So that seems like a really easy space to get in some programming artistically that really shines a light and helps serve the priorities of state government and makes you guys look even better than you already are right now. So that's really exciting. Let's see. I was a little surprised to see how small the board was, but I'm curious if that's normal for you guys, if that's something you're working to expand in the future. I had a few questions in the budget. I just want to point out, I think we saw some comments from NAC saying that the budget wasn't balancing and they weren't able to get materials back from you guys with enough time for us to see it. So just want to make sure that that is on your radar as an organization. I know some of those things have really tight turnarounds, but really important to get them back to your funders. Would also encourage you guys to keep expanding and strengthening your marketing efforts. But I think you have really nice partnerships and educational efforts. And I noted that you guys are thinking about forming a creative district, which is really exciting, and wish you guys best of luck in that effort. This definitely seems like an organization I would want to visit, but also a community and a space that I would want to spend time in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Lakeisha, you have about 10 minutes to go ahead and answer any of the questions or comments that you want to make.
Thank you all so much. Well, the first thing I'm going to address is the Abundance Garden. When I took this job, that was the icing on the cake for me of why I took it. Here in North Omaha, there is a food disparity in this community. There's no grocery stores. There's hard access to get to fresh food. Coming in, I was like, how do I make this connection with the art? Like, how does this blend in with the rest of our programming? Well, we service youth, we service artists that come in. And the beautiful part about it is we can go out, grow, and pick and get our lunch for free in our own garden. But also that the educational piece that comes along with the garden, in making sure I want to take it a step further. We've had successful produce stands, and it was just come, pick, get this food, and go and be happy. But now we're adding actual programming to it, where we're teaching you, this is what a cabbage, this is how you can cook the cabbage. And where we're creating a recipe book this year, where different community members can come together and put together recipes. And we're going to do demonstrations, because we have a culinary kitchen here. So we'll be able to do more programming and more communication and more contact with community than just giving out food at the produce stands, but actually talking about the food and the why of it, and having a more community connection of them being a part of the garden as well, not just picking it up, but actually harvesting it and creating programming around that, not just with adults, but with our youth as well. So we're real excited about our abundance programming that's coming up for it, that we're going beyond just giving away food, but actually programming it. Want to talk about as far as like the community impact questions that were asked. Yes, I have started. When I came in, I noticed that we were creating what we wanted the community to get, but we want the community to be involved. I've lived in several communities all over the United States, and that's one of the things in going in. You have to listen to the community to see, because you may think, oh, I'm doing this, I'll use the Abundance Garden. But people wanted more when I sat down and actually talked to them about the garden. So a lot of these ideas actually came from the community of what they say. So it's the implementation, and also, and I educate them about funding. It takes money to do these things. Nothing is free, even though we're giving it to you for free. But there was a cost that went with this, and what does that look like? And the more we are able to educate that, the better. So we created a program called Voices and Visions. And what we do is we sit down and we talk about different aspects and different parts of our programming just on that program and not as an organization as a whole. So that way we can really deepen the conversation and really deepen the questions and be able to answer those and recreate reports. The first Voices and Visions we did was our theater program because that was the one that was in turmoil for say and kind of rebuilding and restructuring that and coming in. And with that, we were able to get a project revenue model out of that, of what we want that to look like. We were able to create a report to see where we lacked as an organization in helping and how to move forward with that. So we just don't want to have community focus groups and community talks. We actually want to put an action and accountability piece with it, which sits on our website, that particular report. So the next one that's coming up in June, we're going to continue doing those reports. So that way, us and community are both held accountable to what we say in things and moving forward. Feedback as far as like our artists and our other programming, we do sit and we have feedback sessions with them as well of what their experience was, what we could have done, what do we need to add, what did you learn, what are you going to take back, especially our artists that come in from all over the country, what are you going to take back to your community? You know, Omaha is very different than any other city I've lived in, the landscape. But how are we going to impact those artists to take what they learned in coming out to our garden or being a part of our youth studios or our co-op studios? What are they going to take back to their community? That's where the social justice, that's where the social change, when we're able to share those things. As far as our marketing, we are opening and doing more targeted marketing as well, because people the feedback I was getting coming in as a new ED was, hey, I don't know what's happening. So what is it? So we're starting to get more percentages of where people are going for their information, what age groups, because we're touching all that, because we're getting ready in this next year to create a creative aging program. What does that look like? So marketing is an essential piece in that. With our ticketing fees, yes, that radical hospitality comes with a cost as well. So in coming in, that's something that I inherited with that we absolutely love in that breakdown. And it also, now we need to capture more data on that and what that looks like as times are changing with our organization and with community and what that looks like, so that we can continue our radical hospitality and making sure that we are diversifying our income even more. And that's the part I'm going to get into as we're talking about the annual fund. And one of the things coming in that I saw, yes, we are heavy in foundation, more so than we are in federal and state, but we have to diversify because times do change. A lot of foundations, 2 of our foundations have sunsetted. And what does that look like? And I knew that coming in to this organization and with that. So that's one of the things that we are targeting to work on, is diversifying our income and creating those endowments and what that looks like for our organization, especially with these NeoCuts that have happened. What does that look like for us operationally? What do we have to go after? As far as our board size, that is another restructure that is happening. We are now into heavy board recruitment as well with our board. So we try to sit no higher than between 12 to 15 on the board. So we are in heavy board recruitment for that, along with a lot of other organizations, because Omaha is very heavy in nonprofits. So, I mean, it is very hard because you want the quality, you want the right fit of a board member. I know for me as an ED, because that is so important in the governance piece and in the decision-making pieces of an organization, what your board looks like. I just don't want board members to come and sit, but to actually, this is a working board and what that looks like, and definitely be invested into the mission of the organization and moving us forward. And I think I covered ticketing policy. Yes, policymakers. Yes, I came into an election year. Hooray for me. So a lot of changes are happening in our landscape, and especially like our district leaders are changing in that, and we're getting ready to get a mayor. We're in a lot, a presidential. So yeah, I came into a heavy election year, but building those relationships and continuing doing that regardless of where the election goes is definitely still in some foreplay with that, because at the end of the day, these people are still a part of our community, and it matters of them being a servant leader. So with that, thank you all so much for taking the time to and giving us an opportunity to discuss our application. And yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lakeisha. I think that answers it all, and that's perfect timing. We're right at the time, so we'll say goodbye to you and thank you for coming. And panelists, go ahead and look at your scores. Thank you, Lakeisha.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Just as an FYI, you probably have heard it a couple times that it was mentioned that there are about sunsetting foundations. There are two major foundations in the state that basically the Omaha area that are sunsetting, and they have informed groups ahead and so everybody knows. But two, I think it's been mentioned before, and so it's affecting a number of the groups. Okay, everybody ready? Okay. We now have Sheldon Art Association. Are they on board?
Yes, they might have been hooking up to audio when you said your last.
Okay.
So just in case.
Okay.
And I just want to remind people it might be under Nebraska Art Association if you're looking for it in your list. If it's not quite clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, then welcome to Sheldon Art Association. Would you please identify yourself and your position in the organization for our panelists? And then you have 2 minutes of timed introductory comments. Then the panelists will give their reviews, and then you'll have time to do a response.
Sounds great. It's so nice to meet all of you. Good afternoon. I'm Susan Longhenry. I'm director here at the Sheldon Museum of Art, and I'm joined by my colleague Laura, who will introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Laura Reznicek. I'm the Director of Institutional Advancement.
All right, so 2 minutes. I'm going to start with gratitude for all of you panelists, because I know that we're your last session right after 2 days. I'm guessing it's been a long 2 days. So thank you for all of the time and energy and talent that you spent on these deliberations. I know it's a lot of work, but thank you for your commitment to our field. And thank you to the Nebraska Arts Council for inviting us to the conversation and for all the work that you do in our state. We're very grateful. I am a fairly new director here. I've been here since August of 2023. And before that, I've been a director for 15 years at different museums. But before that, I was a museum educator. I ran museum education departments at the Museum of Fine Arts Boston and the Indianapolis Museum of Art. So hello, former Hoosier. That means I bring a pretty distinct perspective to this work, and you may have seen in the materials that I wrote a blog for the American Alliance of Museums about asset-based community development and the ladder of citizen participation. That deeply informs the work that I do here, and that's the perspective that I brought to Lincoln. I will say that when I came here, I did a lot of work with stakeholders to get feedback, and I learned that there had been seasons, shall we say, at the Sheldon, where under one director, there was a focus on the community of Lincoln and Nebraska, but that it was in the form of annual festivals, etc. The director after that was very focused on campus. And when I came here, I will just share that in my view, that misses the point of this museum, which is that it's the nexus of the University of Nebraska, the Lincoln, and the Nebraska statewide communities. That is our superpower as an academic museum here. And so as I worked with the stakeholders, the board here, the staff, we realized we needed to really maximize our potential to play that role. And we landed on the paradigm of the empathetic museum, which you read about in our proposal. It just gave us some really good language to use as we approach this work. And I hope that you see that played out in our application. In terms of updates, I will just say that we have done more work on family days. I think we only had one mentioned in the application, but we did some visitor research and we found out free, family friendly, and fun. So we're doing 3 of them this summer.
Great. You'll have time for more reactions later. All right, we'll start then the reviews with Kellen.
Thanks, Sherry, and thank you for this wonderful application. You're right, we are at the last one, but it doesn't feel like it's been too laborious. This has been a really enjoyable process, so no fatigue here. We're all well caffeinated, I believe. So just going through your application, it was great. I mean, just being able to see your process, and you kind of explained a little bit more of that, Susan, in your brief intro, just on kind of your viewpoint on like how you're coming into programming and dealing with, again, all the things that we deal with in the arts. So as far as strategic planning the retreats, as far as the planning and evaluation, all of that looked really good. You guys are really leaning into community-led measures, using data to collect user experiences, guide programming. One thing I noticed, and this is like, I don't know, when you mention things and I go, wait, I didn't see that. So I was just curious. You're mentioning percentage of educators scoring a program, but didn't mention like how many educators, and that made me kind of open Pandora's box to know more about like, you know, even when we were talking about surveys, we can say, oh, everybody liked this, but how many is everybody? So just kind of some of those numbers, if that's something that's important or could tell the story better. But overall, I mean, you're hosting what, 13,000 artworks there in-house. There's a lot of emphasis on that. So being like a really, you know, one of the significant collections of modern and contemporary art, I just thought that was really important. And it does show that you're talking about that. So just that you guys are really culturally significant. Not really understanding the landscape though. And I kind of come back that I'm in South Dakota. I'm not quite sure where everybody lives at and how all these organizations take place. I would have liked to see a work sample, and this might be open-ended and maybe it's not proper for grant writing, but like sending us to your website so we can kind of like check out what's going on and understanding like why you're doing the things you're doing. You're on the campus. How does that, you know, like all those things kind of play into it, because there's a structural funding thing that's very complex. And so that was also kind of just like me understanding it from outside the budget level of what that looks like and how you're perceived. And it can help me kind of paint a better picture of overall, like what artistic merit, you know, excellence is. And when we're putting on that scale, at least looking at where you guys are at in Nebraska proper. So those were my only comments, and the panelists are all great about giving even better ones. So sorry if they weren't complete, but they'll finish my thoughts.
Okay, thanks. Kenneth?
Thank you. And Calvin, you touched on a lot of my points already, so I'm going to be a little bit briefer here. But I was just going to say it's nice to see that this organization returned to this grant program after the last application round, and then you guys worked with the NAC staff prior to submission to make sure that you guys were eligible. So that's really commendable. From the programming schedule, I think that we saw, it still left me with some questions about kind of the percentage of university faculty and their artwork being showcased versus folks who are not university faculty. Similarly with partnerships, it seems like there was a lot of university affiliated groups. And that makes sense considering, you know, the structure of you guys as a museum, but wanted a little bit more information about things that you're doing outside of that university landscape. I really appreciated the mention of the updates to the visitor experiences. Those seemed really thoughtful and responsive to me. I agree with what Kellen said about the work samples. I found that a little bit challenging to get a good assessment of the artistic quality with things like podcast episodes or outside news articles, some of which were PDF'd into the application, but some of which are paywalled, so I couldn't look at them. Susan, reading your resume, it seems like you are incredibly qualified and you are a really, really perfect fit to be at the head of this museum in this time of transition and kind of re-looking at what the organization is doing and its outward-facing messaging. So that makes me really hopeful for the future of you guys. I was a little confused by, and maybe again, this kind of goes back to university restraints, but I noticed that in the budget attachment, you guys only only have about $5,000 worth of grants, I believe. So I was just a little bit curious to know more information about those development efforts. And I really thought it was great to see that you guys are doing so many multilingual translations of your exhibition wall text. So I'd be curious to know how you're doing that kind of accessibility in your other aspects of programming too.
Okay, Dina?
Hello. Looking at artistic excellence and responsive to community, I see that you serve Lincoln Public Schools. You've had a 61-year partnership, and you have the bi-monthly family day. You've adjusted your hours to be open late evenings for community folks. You added the comfortable furniture, and I was wondering, what does the community want? You seem to provide some things, but what does the community want? Have you heard from them in terms of their needs? Congratulations for being one of the first institutions to achieve accreditation from the American Alliance of Museums, being a fellow museum practitioner. I know how important that is. You have traveling exhibitions. You digitized your collection. That is so huge. And then you're also looking at developing a new visitor-focused branding campaign. So that will be important for reaching new audiences. Valuation, good to see that you're participating in the Art Bridges Foundation, COVES, Collaboration for Ongoing Visitor Experience Studies to help with some of the surveying of visitors. I see the empathetic museum paradigm, and I think I haven't heard of that. I'm gonna have to look it up. But it sounds like it's very forward thinking, and I was glad to read about something new that can help museums. You have some strong collaborators. Proactive audience development, proactive plan for audience development. As I mentioned, you have traveling exhibitions. You even have yoga at your museum. We had that once. And then you're developing relevant exhibitions. So I wonder what that meant, because is it relevant to the public? And if it is, do they have any input on it? First time I had read that a refugee-friendly city where you are. I didn't know that, so good to know. And your exhibition has been translated to Spanish. You're going to host a naturalization ceremony. I think that's so cool. That's beautiful. And then the policymakers and elected officials and such. It looks like you have some things that you're doing that are different, the lunch, and then you serve on a committee, Susan, that is an initiative of the Lincoln's mayor. So you're in touch there, and you're in Leadership Lincoln. So yeah, good application.
Thank you.
Okay. Maya?
Thanks, folks. I'll double click on everything that's been said previously, and to just add in the 3 evaluation excellent, sorry. I no doubt your programs and services are responsive to the community. Just tell us how they are explicitly. Give us some more explicit information around that. And also around significant value. No doubt they provide significant value to the community, but tell us how, and perhaps how you know. You probably know that through evaluation. You probably know that in a lot of other ways, but tell us. Appreciated. I think somebody's touched on this previous, but participation in the COVES program. Did want to know a bit more around how you plan to leverage evaluation findings into program development and iteration. No doubt you do, because you wouldn't be doing this evaluation if you didn't intend to have it either inform new program development or program iteration. Connect the dots and talk to me about the process that you take between an evaluation finding and a program development or iteration. Really appreciate the inclusion of measurements in your strategic plan development. Solid development plan. Solid audience in the outreach and engagement section. Solid audience development plan. Wanted to see a bit more education and outreach to some of your Lincoln's diverse communities. Saw some, but would like to see more. And in addition to the Native American population, which of course is important, but wanted to see a bit more there. In the advocacy education section, recognize the sensitivity as a connection to a university, the sensitivity in that space. That being said, I think what does that mean? That means you're going to need to energize and activate your board members and your members and other folks. You know, if it's just staff, well, fine. You guys don't have to do that work, but you've got networks and rings of influence and participation. How do you activate them in significant ways? And again, back to that impact on community and that value to participants. Those are all great messages to share with your folks who are doing advocacy and education on your behalf. So there's a fine line, we know, between advocacy and education. You can certainly educate decision makers on the work that you do. And I would encourage you not to shy away from that piece of it. So that's all I've got.
Okay, great. All right, Susan, you've got about 10 minutes to go ahead and answer any of the questions or make any other comments you want.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your feedback. It's very helpful to us. And I feel like we do have 2 exhibition periods a year. Every time we open a new show and the new iteration that we are going further down on this journey. So it's very helpful. I think a lot of the comments you've made, I can answer by talking about our upcoming exhibitions and maybe especially Hyphen American. So that is an exhibition that we've been planning. It's going to take place next spring. When I first got here, we were hearing a lot about the 250th anniversary of this country and what would we do. And we, at that time, this is 2 years ago, thought this is a complex question. Why don't we take a look at how American identity is constructed? And that is a complex story. And so we would have done that probably just because it's the right thing to do. But because this city, as you said, I was also surprised that Lincoln has this incredibly rich, welcoming environment of new Americans, of refugees, of a resettlement community. And you look at the numbers and you can see that. But I can tell you, I was recently on a plane from Chicago to Lincoln, which I do many times. And I was on a flight with a mother, and she had 4 children, realized they were speaking Swahili and carrying UN migrant bags. And I thought, I am watching this family come to Lincoln and resettle. And it just really hit me in terms of emotion. So we pulled together a community group, and this was maybe a month and a half ago. And I had 20 people in this museum, and it was the Ponca tribe. It was the Task Force for New Americans. We had city council people. We had an incredible representation of people here, and a conversation that was as poignant as you can possibly imagine in terms of, some people saying this is not going to be a celebration for us. How are we going to talk about this? The Nebraska Commission on Indian Affairs, someone said, well, because the importance of language, German people, they like their language. She said, well, at least you can go back to Germany. I mean, we had the real conversations that you should have in museums. So I think that programming is great, but I think when you center the community that you are in, which is this incredibly rich Lincoln community, it takes you where you need to go. And so that is the relevance piece. That is the audience engagement piece. And it's a relationship that continues. We're doing the Native American work now, as you know. They're working on an indigenous garden on campus. Now we're part of that. It just is, it takes a momentum on, and it's, annual festivals are great, but it's long-term relationships that are the most important. So how are we relevant? How do we know what we want? We acknowledge the agency of our community. And I mentioned quickly the ladder of citizen participation. You want them, you don't want to outreach, you don't want to be advising, you want them to be at the top of that ladder. So that is the paradigm that we work with. Relevance and exhibitions. I would say that it was wonderful for me to come here. This really is a public-private partnership. Certainly, we're part of the university, but this museum is here because community members, some from other parts of Nebraska, said, we need a great museum here. And I see a real sense of ownership in Lincoln that you don't necessarily see everywhere in terms of how much people love this museum and want to be a part of it. So the minute you make that pivot and center your community, you have the momentum going. So I think that hopefully answers a lot of the questions. Oh, let me say a word about translations. And beginning this fall, we are doing everything in English and Spanish in our galleries. And that commitment we're making because we do have a service on campus, which is extremely helpful and very affordable. But that meeting I talked about languages, the importance of languages came up, including indigenous languages, because we said we're going to translate Spanish, Vietnamese, and we'll have English, of course. And they said, well, what about, the lost indigenous languages? And so that's very culturally relevant. So now we're rethinking all of that. We're going to have the folks writing for Hyphen American write in their native language, and then we'll translate it if we have to. So that translation piece, it's access, but it's also very meaningful in terms of cultural relevance. So I think that answers a lot of it, but I wonder, Laura, if you could speak to the grants question that came up in terms of the $5,000 in grants, and I'll make sure I didn't forget anything else.
I'm looking at our budget again, Kenneth, and I think the 5,000 in grants is just the government grants. The rest of the grants that we get are represented under foundation support. And so I don't know if that was an error in terms of where I put it, but that's the larger foundation support number, which is 157 almost. So.
And in terms of evaluation, we are, in my mind, I think of that as partly responsiveness to feedback I got when I got here. It was immediate that I got a consensus. We were only open at that time 10 to 4, Tuesday through Saturday, talk about institutional body language. So we changed that immediately. We are open on home football games now. We weren't before. We were open big Christmas. I mean, there were some things that you just hear and you're like, oh, I need to fix that immediately. So we did that. The visitor experience part was part of that. We also are, of course, the general direction in terms of the community said, we miss you, we want to work with you more. And so we are doing that. But in terms of incorporating findings, the Coves is so great because it gets at that qualitative things that can be very difficult to measure. It's fine to measure attendance, but did this benefit you, your well-being? Those questions are very important. So I'm looking forward to that. We're in the middle of a strategic planning process right now. We're doing an external assessment, which is interviews with a lot of people throughout the community. And then we're going to use all this information to be incorporated into identifying our key issues in our strategic planning. So we've created a data dashboard with findings we have in the past, but everything that we're doing is feeding into this next strategic plan, which I'm excited about. When I came here, there was a plan that, you read, unfortunately, was like right before COVID. So right before everything changed. And we decided together that the pillars were okay, but we added new objectives and action items, and we've accomplished most of those. But I'm really excited to start, from scratch and really decide how we're going to move forward.
Okay, anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, I think to say that we had our gala on Saturday, and I said, Brian Stevenson, some of you may know, talks about the importance of proximity, and I believe in that. And what I found is, as you do that, you kind of fall in love with your community, and so that's kind of where we're coming at this point. But thank you for your consideration, and we hope to be able to work with you again in the future.
Okay, thank you. Well, then we'll say goodbye to you and Laura, and the panel will recheck their scores. And so this session is ended. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. See you later.
Okay. Panel, let me know after you've finished your scores. Okay. Now that the applicants have all been discussed and recorded, we'll take a 5-minute break. During that time, the NAC staff will tally the totals and prepare information for our final discussion. When you panelists reconvene, we'll review the procedures and make final recommendations. So the final portion of the meeting is closed to the public. So at this time, I'll say goodbye to any applicants or any members of the public who have joined in, and we'll stop the recording. And then the grant applicants will be notified in June about the funding decision of their application. So recording stop, please. And then we'll take a 5-minute break.